Hey there, SMITE fans, Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
That's a lot of cores. Plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true.
I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
What's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality.
We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible SMITE experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's @Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com.
And you're telling me an alien wore this?
Welcome everyone here to the SMITE Pro League Season 8 Phase 2 Week 6 Day 1. A lot of numbers there. But of course, I want to thank our title sponsor. Wow, escaped me there for some reason. Our title sponsor, Alienware. Aggro just explained it better than I can. Those Ryzen R10 desktops that our pros are playing on alongside those 25-inch gaming monitors, 240 Hz by the way, are just absolutely insane. It's enough to muddle up the brain thinking about it. You can go to smitegame.com/Alienware, use code SMITEAW. Make sure you get your discounts on while you're purchasing all your beautiful gear from Alienware. And of course, follow them on Twitter and Instagram @Alienware, and go to alienwarearena.com to join their global community for giveaways and more. And once again, thank you to Alienware for joining us as our title sponsor this year. But my name's Gormizer, and joining me over there is going to be Taco. Nice fresh haircut as well to kick off the week. Feeling pretty good.
Yeah, thanks, Gar. Appreciate it. No, it is feeling nice, feeling a little kawaii, you know.
A little. Ooh. You got the, you gotta get the.
I
don't think you can say kawaii without the immediate.
I need the cat ear headset.
The cat ear headset.
Oh man, get on that.
Do you remember what set was it? Like Season 5? Maybe it was Season 4, but there was the metal behind, and specifically for the chair 2, it would give you a cat ears every now and then. Maybe we have to bring it back just for you. We'll put one back there every time that you're on specifically. But we've got an interesting week coming up for Taco because there's so much that is going to be, I want to say, on the line for the Bolts. They're undefeated right now. But for a lot of these teams, we're finally entering the point where I'm going to start hammering away at it. Playoffs are sooner than we realize. And for some of these teams, These last few weeks are like the make or break. Their wins are going to matter more than anything because they might not be able to get there. Scarabs are in a position like that. But the first team we're going to be watching, the Warriors, as well, a lot of weight on all of their wins because a couple of losses is all it takes to drop into that 7th, 8th spot and disappear.
True, but on that same note, I think it's the Valhalla Valkyries that might be sweating it
Maybe
a
a
little
little
bit
more worried.
harder than the Oni Warriors here, Gore. They have not had much success, if any, throughout the entirety of Season 8. Granted, of course, always have to bring to relevancy the fact that this is a full roster on European ping, and not the ideal European ping for every single one of those players. And I just think that this is an impactful set for sure because Oni Warriors, while we've seen them definitely step it up as of late, I think more particularly we're always talking about Nika in the discussion when it comes to the Oni Warriors, but for the Valhalla Valkyrie specifically, this is a team that I think is more than capable of punishing teams when they're not able to find those periods of consistency, and I think that Oni Warriors still have enough question marks here and there for the Valhalla Valkyries to look for a potential punish.
Enough openings, especially, to capitalize on, and that's something that we've seen the Valkyries doing quite well. But last week we saw the Warriors step up, at least in one of the two sets. One of them was against the Bolts. Look, it's difficult to step up right now against the Bolts, but when they were facing the Kings, it was interesting, and a player, like you said, we always talk about Nika, but if we look towards the other side of the map, Neil, who has been not necessarily inconsistent, but slowly stepping back up to where we kind of expect him to be at, right? Last week, I think, was a lot more of a showcase of what we can come to expect of him.
Yeah, maybe we'll see the battle of the Kuzenbos here today for Neilma and Raffer, I think, two of the only supports in the league right now that have really been taking their chances on that support pick. But I do think that they share a relatively similar god pool, and for somebody like Neil, it just kind of showcases a lot of that flexibility, and I get it. Oni Warriors, they certainly haven't had the greatest season by any means. You know, of course, they're dealing with a couple of ping disparities themselves. Neil being actually one of those players affected by that aspect. But on the other hand, I do think that when it really comes down to it, Neilma is always a player that's going to perform when something's on the line.
And so far, it's been going solidly for them. I mean, 3-5, it's not necessarily the best spot in the standings, but again, the way things have been going against their I want to say more difficult opponents lately has been better performances.
Neil just has so much talent, Gore, that he can only channel it for certain periods of time.
It's like the Shaggy meme, like he can only be full power for so long without it literally burning up the corporeal form that he has.
And you can't let Neil destroy himself. Hence why we tend to see the Oni Warriors at their best whenever they are in that tournament environment.
Look, if you want to look at it this way, last year, and the year before, like Neil's in his comfort spot. He's in the 5th, 6th zone. That's how you win world championships here. We'll actually get to talk to Neil about it, maybe, as to whether or not that is exactly the case. Neil, I guess I'm going to just pivot on that immediately. Are you guys like that worried about your spot in the standings so far this year? Or is everything going maybe not smoothly, but okay?
Yeah, we're definitely not worried about our spot in the standings. If we make playoffs, we know we can do a lot of damage, and I think at this point, like given the bottom two teams where they're at with the rosters and their situations, I think that we're probably going to make playoffs. I think that it's just an unfortunate circumstance for them. Mm-hmm. I don't think we're necessarily where we want to be, but we're definitely getting there, and we're definitely having a rise as of late. I think we just make a couple mistakes in late game situations that cost us games. But I think for the most part, we're hanging in almost every game and have a chance to win, which is fantastic.
I was going to say, you can't sell yourselves too short while there are teams out there that are having roster changes or maybe their situation isn't lending it to it. I mean, you guys pushed the Kings to 3 games last week and looked really good doing so. It's just been that consistency that's the question. What do you think needs to be hammered out for this team to hit that stride every set?
I really do think it's just the little things, like these tiny decisions, whether it's me or anyone else on the team late game just making one mistake. That's kind of all it takes against all these teams now who are really, really seasoned and really good, right? They're going to punish you. And when it's 30, 40 minutes in the game and you're dead for a minute, teams can do a lot with that amount of time, right? They get a Fire Giant, they get a Phoenix. So it just comes down to these little decisions late game. And I think just being a bit more decisive, and I think that'll come with hopefully when everyone moves as well, right, with ping being different, confidence is up and decisiveness goes up as well. So I think all these things are definitely slated to fall into place for us.
Well, it sounds like you guys actually have a really good game plan for the rest of the year, not just the rest of this phase, but looking forward as well. So I'm excited to be able to watch it. Thanks for your time, man. Good luck in your games.
Thanks.
Taco, I mean, they're 2-2 right now. Like, they won the most recent set versus the Valkyries. The Valkyries' only win until recently was against the Warriors way, way, way back in week 2 of Phase 1. But based on what, like Neil, they understand what's going on. It's just turning it into action right now. The Valkyries, admittedly, some of what they have, like you had mentioned earlier, isn't necessarily under their control. They aren't going to, well, they can't just teleport over here, play Smite, teleport back, or anything like that. And so it is going to be a lot more challenging for them, but this is a set that, at least standings-wise, is a little closer for them to take on.
I like the fact that Neil touched on the hesitation factor that can sort of come into play at times, and I think that that's a very relatable aspect for both of these teams, because I can definitely understand why there would be a concern and like why confidence would waver, given the fact that if everybody's on ping, if you don't have to worry about that sort of circumstance, then it's very easy, I think, to just draw it up white and black. Okay, this is the shot call that we're going to go, this is the one we're going to commit for. But when you do have that secondary factor of ping kind of hanging over your head, it gets very easy to think, well, am I going to hit it? Am I going to do this? If we mess this up, then what happens after that? And then you start thinking about all the negatives, and it can definitely work against any seasoned player. But also, it's just the fact that it really does only take one mistake right now. It doesn't even necessarily have to be at that 30-40 minutes mark. It can be even at the 20 to 25 minutes period, and we've seen games end just like that.
I mean, we've seen some, like you had said, not even like result in a lot of kills. It's like, hey, your team didn't get wiped. You just got pushed back so far, zoned out so hard that you couldn't do anything. And that's where a lot of these supports come in. We talked about Neil, but we have to talk about Raffer, because you had mentioned the Kuzenbo, but the wide God pool and theoretically the status he brings as a player is enough. But again, the Valkyries, whatever excuse you might want to give them, that just haven't been able to rise to the occasion more than once a phase.
Well, I feel as though Raffer and Neilmoss share a lot of similarities in terms of their God pools. I think that their playstyles are completely 180 of each other. Raffer is a player that I think is better suited more towards that defensive strategy, where he can just be a heavy peel factor, looking for the try and kill me, I'm Raffer, like I'm gonna dance around your entire team fight and see how long I can survive for the next minute or two. And I think that that's the best suited playstyle for Raffer, especially when he's having to encounter all of those ping disparities alongside of just like his entire team. His best performances, in my mind, Gore, have come from him being on the more defensive-oriented gods. And Neil, again, complete total 180 of that. He's somebody who likes to be much more aggressive, so while there might be a similarity in the god picks, I think there will definitely be a lot of differences.
I think the best example, because we got to see a little bit of Kuzenbo, we saw a little bit of Terra in the highlights, but both players had the Khepri. And Neil's Khepri is, I'm going to get a save and then chase them down, whereas Raf's was, I'm going to make the save and get them out. So it's a very different style, or at least mentality, when it came down to the plays. But it's the Warriors, it's the Valkyries. This is going to be an interesting one. I think there's actually a lot more weight to this, especially for the Valkyries, but just as well for the Warriors. First pick for game number 1. And we've been talking a lot. I mean, supports have been the talk of the town, but I'm kind of curious just to get your thoughts on it. With no more benevolence, with it finally no longer lurking over us, there's the word, is that going to change some of this priority?
Well, Watchers is certainly going to re-enter the conversation. It's a starter that we haven't seen in quite some time, but a lot of supports, I think, have sort of been fluctuating back towards that OG starter item for themselves. But it seems as though a lot of the emphasis right now for the Oni Warrior is going to be a little bit more towards that jungle department, possibly trying to withhold to see if they can get a Tiamat pick, in their favor, or even the Terra. I think Terra is probably going to be one of the more heavily contested picks of this set.
Yeah, that was the one that was really kind of, because she really stepped forward last week alongside Benevolence, I was like, all right, is she going hand in hand? Is she just good enough on her own? Should be good enough on her own here. But you had mentioned it. It's always something interesting. Well, there's that Terra, first and foremost. It's so difficult to talk about the supports, and then I almost completely blanked on Johnny just existing for the Valkyries as someone that's going to take some priority bans. Kind of a lightning rod, as you can see down in the bottom right of, I guess, the middle, the bans against the Valks. And that Loki pick important to him. But you had mentioned the Tiamat, something that the Valkyries admittedly have lost, I think, every game with. The Warriors would love to scoop that up. Yeah,
I just don't think that it's really... And if Zeros didn't have to play with 200 ping a game, Gore.
Yeah.
I think that
he'd
we
be
see
just
him
fine with it.
super happy to be leaning towards that Tiamat. But now I think the ball is in the Valk's court to decide whether or not they want to try and fare against it, because that Morgan Le Fay ban definitely kind of alluding to the fact that the Oni Warriors are potentially looking to try and scoop up that Tiamat in that first pick position. Granted, there are some strong support options still left open as well. There's a Fafnir, there's an Amir. I think that either of those would be strong centerpieces in terms of forming a draft around the Oni Warriors, but it's going to be the Tiamat, as I think, I don't want to say it's predictable, but Tiamat is a top contested god for a reason.
The only person I think we've seen rival Tiamat getting first pick is Artemis right now, and it's just because of how strong they can be. Maybe the Gilgamesh, when he gets let through. And Morgan Le Fay banned away means that the Valkyries are going to have to reach a little deeper into their pockets. For those of you catching up, it was the, Gilgamesh, Morgan Le Fay, Terra bans from the Warriors, Odin, Yamoja, Artemis on the side of the Valkyries. Tiamat first pick makes sense, mostly predictable. Fafnir, you had just highlighted as one of the top supports left available, and immediately the Valkyries want to scoop that up.
I think this is a strong selection. Soul also still up for grabs here for the Valkyries, but it's going to be the Raijin instead that the Valks seem to have a little bit more comfort towards. A lot of burst damage, though, definitely being combined alongside these two picks already. And not only that, but Johnny's signature Loki Gore could potentially make an appearance here at this rate. And Oni Warriors seem like they're trying to preemptively prepare for that by locking in the Serket. Serket, I think, can be a very strong threat against the likes of a Loki, whether it's just harassing him, following the jungle. It doesn't even necessarily need to be a Serket jungle pick here for Cuvo. Could possibly be a Serket support. I wouldn't put it past Neil. I think that he's more than capable of piloting that god. It just really all depends on what the Oni Warriors want to do here.
You said Cuvo's name, and immediately it turns out Cuvo has the most gold. That he's just accumulated the most gold over his career. It's a very, very weird number, but over 9 million. So do with that what you will, Smite Game Chat.
Just said 9,000.
Just say 9,000. Well, Heimdall gets locked in for the Warriors. And this, overall, like you said, Serket is kind of ambiguous, but, Tiamat, Heimdall, you kind of know what they're bringing to the table. They are very telegraphed. You know exactly how they're going to play and what they're looking for. And yet there's not really much you can do about it. You just kind of have to deal with it. Whereas Fafnir, Raijin, Fenrir, there are teams in the league that would kill for this top 3 from the Valkyries.
Something to keep in mind here for the Oni Warriors, that the Valhalla Valkyries, they've got a lot of single target focus taking place right now, and Oni Warriors, I would like to see them kind of complement the rest of their composition. They've got all their damage online, more than enough of it even, but they need consistent crowd control, and that's something that I think the Valhalla Valkyries have done a great job of securing for themselves, because whether it's Fafnir, Raijin, Fenrir, all 3 of this top 3 from the Valks, they all have forms of initiation. They all have forms of self-peel as well, which I think is crucial against the likes of a Serket and Heim, because those are relatively dive-heavy gods. I know that we might not necessarily see the Heim getting to play as aggressive as what I'm describing, but I definitely think that if anybody's going to be capable here, I wouldn't put it past Vote by any means.
We need to come up with a name for the bottom 2 bans, being Jingwei, Sun Wukong versus the Valks, because it's so consistent across every team that those are the bottom 2, because admittedly those are their most picked gods. I think they've even first picked a Sun Wukong this year at one point. So it makes sense, but there's got to be a clever name for it, a clever nomenclature as we move forward. Sobek, Kepri, banned on the other side by the Valkyries, and a Neath hover. And Taco, this Neath, admittedly, I think it was alongside a Kronos when the Valkyries looked really, really good with it, but it's something that Zeros has gone to a lot just to give a lot of stuns everywhere. Of course, now that I'm going into that. Instead, we can break down Dan Zaburo, who we haven't gotten to see in a little while. He's been kind of sitting on the sideline.
A much better laning matchup, though, for the Heimdall in comparison to the Neath. I'm actually incredibly happy that the Valks did not opt for the Neath here. I think that god pick would have been absolutely decimated by Vote in the laning phase. But the Danzaburou on the opposite end there, he's got great survivability. I think that the Fatalis effect as well, whenever he's in that third ability, it could be interesting in terms of boxing matchups. And again, I also just feel as though you can utilize that rocket from the Danza to be an initiation factor.
Yeah.
So Valhalla Valkyries definitely have a lot of components that I think really complement each other nicely. And the Oni Warriors, they certainly rounded things off with that crowd control that I was asking for, but maybe not as steep of crowd control. This is a definite, like, I wouldn't say high execution composition from the Oni Warriors, but it's going to require them to be precise when they do commit.
And I think Kukulkan for Nika there, typically if you're looking for Nika to do fine, this is a pick he's going to do fine on. But like the Kuzenbo has been kind of hit or miss. It can be good for Neil. We had mentioned it can be good for Raffer as well, but it's not necessarily something we see everyone going to. Heimdall, Serket, Tiamat, again, do exactly what you need him to do, but you had highlighted maybe not enough CC. The Osiris rounds it out for the Valkyries, something there for Ducky to take into the solo lane. Taco, I'm going to say this outright. I'm leaning way more towards the Valkyries draft as of right now, just in what we've seen in the past, but at the same time, it feels like a coin flip. See, I'm honestly on the opposite end of that. I think that Zeros is going to have an awful time this game because if there's one thing that Neil is excellent at doing is when he gets the Kuzenbo, it doesn't matter. You follow all the team fights that happen this game, chat. And I promise you, wherever Zeros is at, you're going to see Neil right behind him spamming his children. Just ready, waiting.
Just hell spawns. That's all it's going to be. Just Nene Kappas nonstop. Neil loves playing harasser towards the carries, and I think that Raijin, definitely a god that can struggle with peeling himself away from the Kuzenbo. And if the Valhalla Valkyries are having to shift all of their attention towards keeping Zeros alive, or possibly even the Fenrir having a lot of interruption to deal with up against the likes of that Kuzenbo, that's prime pickings, I think, for Serket, Heim, Tiamat, even the Kukulkan to step into the mix and really take advantage of that chaos.
A lot of little, like, annoying minions here. Not just the Nene Kappa chasing down Zeros, but you're eventually going to have to start to come to full force with those Tiamat minions, even though they're not as strong as they once were. Still something you got to be worried about here for the Valkyries, and multitasking hasn't been treating them as well in their last few sets. But we'll get to see whether or not they can put up the fight. Danzaburo, you had mentioned being strong. The Osiris was the round out for them. Is Ducky going to be able to hold his own against Nika here?
This is purely designed to be a slap box fight for the solo laners. I think it's more so to see what happens with the jungle impact on the solo lane.
We'll get to see if the junglers are going to be as active over there and if the Valkyries are going to be able to keep themselves going. Again, a lot of the pressure going to fall onto, as you had highlighted, Johnny here, I think more than anybody. A lot of magnifying glass coming in on him rookie year. That is necessary to perform. We'll see if he can do that here in game number 1. We'll go down to J-Mac and Mifflin to take it that way.
Well, thank you, Gore and Taco. Into game number 1 we go. J-Mac and Mifflin here on it, and Doug bringing you the spectator for that one. Emily, too, going on to this Danzaburo, who I think I'm going to have my eyes on probably the most of this draft. It seems kind of the more out there one. We haven't seen a lot of Danzaburo as of recent.
Haven't seen too much unless we're talking about Panda Cat, but even more than just the lack of seeing Danzaburo, it's seeing Emilito play what I would qualify as a very aggressive god. When I think of Emilito, I'm thinking of Neith, I'm thinking of Jingwei, I'm thinking of maybe even the Hachiman, that safety inside the lane. Instead now, he's playing a god that I have coined the term win harder. If Danzaburo pulls ahead and he's allowed to ult aggressive, he's just going to dominate the lane. So we'll see how the Valhalla Valkyries decide to play around that. Taco alluded to it on the desk, saying maybe we'd see some solo lane pressure from these junglers. I want to see the Valkyries put it all here.
Well, they're going to throw some big damage onto Vogue, get him down under half health. A nice push from Neil.
Dude, what?
And meanwhile, Ducky gets a solo kill onto Nika on the far side of the map. But back into the dual lane, Emilito and Raffer able to get a nice bit of pressure on Vogue. Vogue still sitting nice and healthy.
J-Mac, that's Nika.
Yeah,
Ducky just soloed Nika. Hey, production, if you can hear me right now, we need that replay. That is insane, the pace of which that solo lane has already been set. And, well, slapboxing might not be the case over there anymore. That's a large lead for Osiris to find himself in. Could head back to base very quickly and just get all that farm available to him.
Well, luckily for us, production did listen, and we do get to watch the solo kill for Ducky. Just doing what Osiris does. He just hits him with the sickle, gets those constant slows and the basics to follow. Meanwhile, Johnny rotates over, but not enough damage. He needed one more basic on Neil, and he's able to squeak out of that one. Johnny not successful in the kill.
And Johnny, having dedicated all that time to ganking this lane, already finds himself at least a half-level deficit. Cubo Fred already over to level 3. I gotta think that Nika used the Salmon Leap aggressively in lane, just clear wave, and got punished for it.
Neil gonna get a push onto Raffer, but Raffer will be fine for the time being. Still lots of action to be had in this duo lane. I'm certain because of the matchups we're seeing the gods pick, we're gonna be seeing a lot of fighting in these first few levels. But Mifflin, most important thing of this game, look at the supports. They don't have benevolence. It's a new world we live in.
Yeah, new world order here. Benevolence eating a GP5 nerf. It is a lot less. I mean, I'm not Flare Boot, I'm not Gore Miser, I don't do the numbers like that, but it's essentially, you don't get it paid off for another 5 or 6 levels if I read those charts properly.
Neil gonna get a push onto Raffer, trying to steal away this purple buff, and it may have been successful in doing so, and maybe getting one more on top of it. Neil falls low, Emilito low on mana, but he's willing to still take this fight. Raffer body blocking for a vote, but he gets into the Bifrost and he gets back to lane.
This has been this new style from the Valhalla Valkyries, bringing this early game aggression, and I am loving this look for them. They're trying to establish their pressure, and they've built a draft that utilizes pressure incredibly well. If at any point a lane pulls a lead, that's a free gank for Johnny, who's already playing a god that works very well. It burns beads with the Ragnarok, has a ton of damage output in the early, so keep your eyes on the Valhalla Valkyries. They're going to be looking to set this pace. They don't want to allow the Oni Warriors to get to that mid to late game phase because, well, Tiamat scaling is still crazy. Kunzabo might be one of the best late game gods in the Guardian role.
Ducky with an aggressive Blake and an aggressive play. Now 2 solo kills onto Nika. Ducky has really stepped up in this one and is putting it to Nika. There is just no room to breathe in this solo lane.
Ducky killed Nika twice before he went back to base, J-Mac. I mean, we are just now headed back to base. Warrior's Axe and Steel Mail picked up. And if Nika thought that he was going to be able to fight back in at any point, well, he's missed that opportunity. Still level 4, 2 level deficit. Ducky has the damage advantage. He's tankier. He's higher level. He might even get his ultimate back before Nika gets it for the first time. This is tough for the Oni Warriors solo laner, but Nika has been one of the most consistent players on this Warriors roster throughout the entirety of the year. He just needs a little bit of help now. Send Cuvo Fred over like this and put the slowdown onto Ducky.
Cuvo will manage to steal the Harpy away and deny Ducky one instance of farm, but luckily for Nika, he finally hits that level 5 threshold, so he's got his ultimate online now to try and deal with Ducky, but as you pointed out, Ducky's already got Tier 2 towards defense, he's got his axe online, and he picked up a healing chalice alongside that one, so he had a lot of gold to go back and spend there, and spend it he did to really build up that arsenal.
This is a failing on my part, J-Mac, but I'm looking at Nika's consumables. 4 health potions selected. That's 200 gold lost. Gotta think that feels bad.
Big push onto Johnny, forces the Ragnarok away. Neil's going to throw out the Kappa to also dissuade Rapper and Emil from continuing forward, and that'll push the duo lane back. But and look at the level disparity we're seeing now into the duo lane. About a level between the supports and the carries. Nice hammer there by Raffer just to deny Neilmoth stopping both backs.
Yeah, Raffer stiffs arm him, just making sure that his boy's able to get his way back to base. And the Valhalla Valkyries, as you already highlighted, are benefiting from a very sizable lead in both side lanes now. But that back timing from Emilito is getting punished. Neilmoth starting the purple.
Raffer up into the ultimate, and Vote's going to throw him through the realms. Rocket comes through. Emil able to hold it off for the time being, but Vote gets pushed around by the tremble from the money bags, and luckily for him, he'll be able to get out of there into the Bifrost. So Emil gonna hold on for now. Looks like he was able to also, in the process, secure that purple buff.
Yeah, the drive-by rocket picks up the last hit on the purple, which is nice, and Emilito gets to get the solo farm as well. Raffer not in range to get any of that. It means that Emilito, who is already at a pretty decent lead, is only going to get a little bit more so now. But I like this call from the Valkyries. If your pressure is established inside the long lane, you want to create these win conditions on the map. Now, Greater Scorpion removed. Gold Fury going to be spawning up very soon. If the Valkyries can maintain this pace, find one more pick in the long lane, they are going to immediately be able to look towards this neutral objective.
Cuvo going to go towards the Scorpion, but looking back over into the supports with their builds onto it, Neil has again gone for this Stone of Binding rush onto this Kuzumbo. Flip side, we see the standard Gauntlet of Thieves. We've seen Neil do this a few times, not just on Kuzumbo, but other gods he's played as well, where he doesn't immediately go towards that Thieves rush like almost every other support has been.
Yeah, very interesting that he's elected to go Stone and Binding so early on, considering the pace of this game. Could have very easily switched up his build to swing towards the Thieves, but maybe he wants to have a bit more fight potential, worried about exactly this scenario.
Cyclone comes out of Dardes, trying to secure the red buff. Looks like he's unsuccessful in doing so. Johnny gets shoved around into the Ragnarok. He goes,
Rip.
but the knockup from Dardes is enough to secure the damage onto and take him down, to the Oni Warriors able to strike back and get a kill on their board.
Johnny just steps a little bit too far forward there, was acting as zoner for the red buffed invade, and, well, they do get the red, but at a large cost.
Emil in a little bit of danger here. He's going to get the rocket off just
Nice.
in time and manages to turn his camera far enough to get away from the duo lane. So luckily for Emil, he gets out and still holds on to those beads as well, only losing out on the rocket.
But you know what has gone unaddressed this game, J-Mac? Both mid laners. As Emilito tries to go to the purple, there's the beads you were talking about, but turns into a leaf. Is he out?
He might just be out with Raffer there
Nuts.
in defense for him. Nice rotation from the support to guarantee that he gets out. And I guess luckily for him, he still had those beads after, because the rocket definitely would not have saved his life there.
Man, I can see the gears turning in the Warrior's head. Yo, which one is he? Where is he at? Well, he's the one that's going towards his tier 2 tower. Emilito, Ocean's 11, his way out of that one. Just walks on out. Clean play, but as you highlighted, cost him the beads. That's 2 minutes lacking the safety. Going to be a little while until he gets the rocket back as well. This creates an opportunity for the Oni Warriors. Going to turn that pressure around inside the long lane. It was the Valkyries that set up this gold free. It's now ready to be taken. If the Warriors can put the pressure on Emilito now, that's a neutral objective.
Cubo gets spotted out, picks up for Johnny, and still onto the chase, but the Brutalized will chase out that Deathbane, and Johnny puts himself with his first kill onto the board, taking down Cubo.
Man, this is different from the Valkyries.
I'm loving
It is a concise, concerted effort to put pressure inside the early game. They are moving with purpose. They're looking for invades, going for these ganks, and the pressure is certainly on. They're 2,000 gold up 9 minutes in. I am loving this from the Valkyries, but as I was saying earlier, who has been left unaddressed? Dardes. You can't let this Tiamat free farm. 1-0 is about equal levels with zeros, but you want to slow that down as much as you can. Already at level 10, he's on a very good pace.
Yeah, you cannot leave this mage by themselves to free cast in the backline. Something's got to be done. We'll see if the Valkyries can do so. Zeros gets hit by Ruination. That's going to be enough to push him back into lane. Red buff will go down, so Dardes can rotate back over and clear that out as soon as he's cleared up these minions, and he'll do so very swiftly thanks to that first ability onto that Tiamat. And now Vote and Neil looking again towards this purple buff. It looks like everybody's eyes are set towards this purple. Raffer and Emil will walk away. Zeros may not have that same luxury. He gets taunted in, uses the Thunder Crash to go away, and throws out the ultimate as well after the last breath comes out of the jungler.
Maybe worried that the ambush was going to be following him through that thunderclap, and unfounded worries. Uses that ultimate, the Taiko Drum now expended, team fight tool lost, and that is a small win for the Oni Warriors. It makes sure that Zeros isn't allowed to farm up anymore. It's making sure that they don't have that team fight presence if they do decide to look towards the Gold Fury, the Valhalla Valkyries that is. But at the end of the day, it is a net wash. Oni Warriors were looking to invade, and, well, they didn't get any buffs.
Scorpion does go down on the left side, so the Warriors will at least get some enhanced buffs on that flip end of it. Vote getting the first of them. Dardes actually didn't make it back to the red in time to pick that one up, so he'll be lacking the extra little bit of a damage burst for early on, but I'm sure he's not too worried about it. He'll go ahead and clear out those minion waves and just sit comfortably in this mid lane.
Yeah, the Oni Warriors right now, their whole goal, just wait it out. Just wait a little bit longer. Make sure you get to that late game team fight. Taco already talked about it on the desk, but Neilma is going to make it very hard for Zeros to perform. Dardes' scaling is incredibly high. The dive potential between Cuvo and Nika is also going to be very hard to deal with for this Valkyries draft, which is why I had so much emphasis saying I want to see the Valkyries keep up this pressure, keep utilizing that early game, invade these buffs, see whatever you can do to start looking at these neutral objectives, because their early game is incredibly strong. They do have a very nice lead right now. It's just about whether or not they can push it forward.
Well, we are going to try and get back to game as quick as we can. A brief little pause for the moment being on to, but I mean, looking at the state of it, this is one of the better starts that we've seen out of the Valkyries all phase, maybe even, I wouldn't maybe say all year, but definitely this phase. This has been one of their more powerful starts onto it, a lot of it coming from that dual lane, but I think the early momentum just from Ducky. Ducky getting not just one, but 2 solo kills onto Nika is not something you get to see every day. One thing we also didn't highlight onto it that I think needs to be pointed out, Raffer goes for the meditation early on into the build there for his relic, and we do get to once again see the first blood come out there for Ducky that kind of started that pace for her. But you see the meditation out from Raffer. He's also gone for the wing blade to finish out there, so a little bit more defense oriented for his relic.
Yeah, a little bit more sustain as well. And I think it's easy to forget how this game started. It's easy to forget that Ducky was able to find that double kill first blood, essentially. Gets 2 kills on Nika before he heads back to base. But I think that once you put it into perspective and saying, how often do the Oni Warriors rely on Nika to rotate out a lane early on and shift up to 3v3 in mid? I'd say that's the majority of their wins. That's a lot of their win condition. Nika hasn't been allowed to leave his lane just yet. Ducky has effectively hamstrung one of the best assets of the Oni Warriors.
We should be getting back into this game here in just a moment, so stick around. We're still holding on to it and making sure we can get right in there as quick as possible. But I think you're right onto that one. Nika, unable to leave lane, unable to really do anything. Still sitting down a level and not quite behind onto the build. He's actually got a half an item up, but I think that's just on account of Ducky is not going back to base as often as you would normally see. He's sitting on that full mystical mail, just like the flip side there for Nika.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's able to force Ducky back to base. He could just sit inside of his lane. Cuvo Fred hasn't really made too many rotations over to the soul lane since we saw him steal that Alpha Harpy on the right-hand side. I mean, under 0 threat, Ducky essentially is just allowed to sit there and maintain the farm. He's also controlling the Totem of Ku incredibly well, and with all that pressure on the right-hand side, controlling the neutral objectives. Pyromancer goes the way of the Valkyries.
Now setting up for the Gold Fury is the Valkyries as well. They're going to try and get that Oracle control, though they only get 1 of the Harpies so far. Other one's still sitting. Emil going to go up into the rocket and get a chase onto Cuvo, or maybe even Dardes swerves the rocket away because he realizes diving into those two might just be a death sentence. Neil dives into the back onto Zeros, gets the Aegis out of him. The shots come through, but it's not quite enough. Uses the fear on the drums just to push Neil away and keep Zeros alive.
That fear was so smart. It wasn't just to keep Neil away from him, it was to keep that Nene Kappa off of him. 1 tick of the little guy would have put him inside the dirt. Zero's intelligent usage of the Tycho drums, but again, cost him a lot of his utility to survive that engagement. Aegis expended, ultimate expended, all leading up to a small win for the Oni Warriors, and somehow Neilma diving the tier 2 tower alone just waddles his way out of there. That is a huge win for the Oni Warriors.
I'm surprised he got out there. There was, what, 3 Valkyries around there to try and heal him away from the mid laner, but somehow through all of it still comes out on top. Doesn't even have any stacks onto that Gauntlet of Thebes yet. He just built that item, so it's not like he has a ton of defenses online. Went for that Stone of Binding first, but immediately the Valkyries turn towards the Fury, get it down to about half, but as soon as Neil steps forward, they all back away.
That is an interesting decision. The Valkyries had so much more presence there, and they had great ward coverage. Gotta think they could have stuck that.
Cuvo picked up and dropped down to about half. The Death Bane stopped with the Thunder Crash. Johnny's looking for it. Unchained will grab him. And another kill on the board for Johnny.
That's an easy pickup for the Valkyries jungler. Just Cuvo Fred a little bit too far forward and add an XP deficit as well. And that XP deficit is not just Cuvo Fred. We're talking 2 levels in a solo, about a half level in mid, a couple levels in support. The Valhalla Valkyries have a ton of control right now, and when they're grouped up as 5, you better believe they're going to look at the neutrals.
Yeah, Ducky has made his rotation over towards the Fury. 5 men on it, and it's balling down quickly, and nobody from the Warriors are willing to step up to even try and stop that one. Valhalla Valkyries on the board with their first major objective of the map. Gold Fury goes their way.
J-Mac, I'm tilted. They could have been doing this all year. This could have just been the Valhalla Valkyries all year. This is a very different look. You know what? You said it earlier, and you maybe with a grain of salt, this is the best we've seen them look all year. I don't think you were far off, man. This is a concise, concerted effort. They came in with a game plan, and they are clearly executing on it. I mean, you can't rely on Ducky to consistently just straight up control Nika as he did in the early game, but I would argue that that's not the entirety of what the Valkyries did to find the pressure that they're at right now. It was an early rotation from Johnny over to the long lane to keep Vote down. Emelito's having one of his best performances. Raffer is consistently putting pressure onto the enemy red buff, onto the enemy purple buff, if not a alone with his team, and if he's just doing it alone, he's at least forcing the Warriors to 3-split their own buffs, which is an incredibly inefficient farm. This is a much different look at this Valkyries roster, and honestly, I am loving every second of it.
And you know what's so crazy is, almost every game that we've seen up until these last couple of weeks, it was ban out Johnny. Don't give him Loki, ever. Now teams are starting to let him get the Loki, but Johnny has gone so far beyond the point. He's known, I never get Loki. Why even bother with it at this point? I'm really loving how he's utilizing the Fenrir this game. He's done it before, and it worked out so well. Maybe the Fenrir is his new Loki.
Maybe. I mean, you're forced to practice all these other gods for so long. Eventually, you are going to become specialized at some of these other picks. And Nika forced to use the blink defensively there. Loses out on its tier 1 tower. Loses out on one of the best initiation tools on the side of the Warriors. And now the Valkyries, happy with what they gained there, have all started to rotate to this left-hand side.
We're 16 minutes in. It's a 5,000 gold swing for the Valkyries, and maybe an extra kill onto it. They get the leap out of Dardes. He's forced to run, but Ducky is rotated over. Brutalize comes through. Dardes going to do a little bit of damage in response, but he doesn't have much further to go as Ducky puts him in the dirt and gets his 3rd kill onto the board. No Fury for them to go towards, so instead they swing to the mid lane.
That is just a scenario where the Valkyries force a question on the Warriors. How quick's your rotation? How good are you at disengaging? We're going to walk as far as we want onto your side of the jungle. That engagement starts essentially inside the Oni Warriors red buff, and well, the Warriors start their retreat, but they leave Dardes alone, and, well, Tiamat can't do it 1 versus 5. She might be the best mage in Smite. She's not going to do it at the SPL level on her own, and gets caught out immediately. And what do the Valkyries do? We found a pick. It was low cost. Let's keep this ball rolling.
They might be able to get an extra one here with Neil. He gets stunned down. Watery Grave is a little too late to save his life. In goes Nika, gets a 4-man knockup with the ultimate, but he gets stunned out instantly by Raffer. Into the back goes Cuvo, gets the ult onto Emil, and will be able to get him down. Poison spreads over to Ducky, but Zeros is the one in danger, caught in the middle of 3. He'll fall down, and what looks so strong for the Valkyries on a big kill, they drop it at the Pyro.
Hey, look, you can only control Nika for so long. You can only keep him out of the game for so long. That's the first time this match that Nika has been allowed to get involved, and it's the first time that the Oni Warriors come on ahead handily inside of an engagement. That is a pretty sizable XP and gold swing in favor of the Order side team, and it's all off the back of that phenomenal initiation from the Kakullan. 4-man knockup, builds up the rage entirely, transforms, and, well, the Valkyries disengage wasn't that good. They don't have the best AoE CC. It's a lot of single target on their side, which means if they're initiating the fights, if they're starting the fights on their own initiative, if it's on their footing, it's going to be pretty good. If they catch someone out, it's going to be pretty good. But inside a true 5-on-5 engagement, what are they relying on? Taiko Drum maybe for AoE CC, single target from the Ragnarok, single target from Raffer, single target from Emilito. It's a very hard to execute on draft once it comes down to an even 5v5.
And all of that was expended to kill who? Nilma, the level 11 Kuzenbo, who is the furthest behind at this point in the entire game. Unfortunate for him, still not at that level 12, so he's not able to get that second relic. So yeah, it's a prime target for it, but they expended so much to take him out. And because of that, they end up falling in the main fight at the end of it with a, as you said, beautiful entrance there by Nika with a huge knockup. Sitting here 18.5 in, 5,000 gold, still separating these teams. Was a little closer to that 6K, but the Valhalla Valkyries up 7-3 on the kills. And look at Johnny's third item, Stone of Gaia out of the jungle.
Well, it's good survivability. I mean, Watery Grave is gonna proc it no matter what. Yeah. You get sumo slams, you're gonna get that additional survivability. And with a Pridwin already selected, we know Johnny wants to act as that initiator, wants to create some space to allow Zeros and Emilito to perform. So I actually do really like this itemization from him, but we get a good look now at the mentality of the Valkyries. That's the first time so far this game that they've lost a team fight, but despite it, they're still willing to push their lead, and this is the right call from them. Grouped up already, 5 members on the left-hand side. Primal Fury has respawned, and Vision is controlled by the Valkyries on the objective itself. Let's see how their shot calling pans out. Raffer does pull it, but immediately resets.
Looking like he was maybe trying to clear a ward there. Nika on the forefront here for the Oni Warriors. He'll be the first one to step forward. Still waiting for Neil to catch back up behind him. He has it level 12, gone for the Shield of Thorns for his relic, but the Valkyries have started up the Fury. Already down to half. Raffer pulls it to one side of the ring. Nika goes in with a big 3-man ult and immediately gets silenced out with that disarm. They're going for Zeros on the backside. Nika gonna get pushed away. A lot of damage coming out of Zeros. Nika forced to use the war cry. Neil gets picked up again by Johnny and brought right to the mid laner. Cuvo has to use the Deathbane away, and in goes Johnny for another one. Brutalized, not quite enough. Gets stunned out just in time, but Ducky cleans it up with the Lord of the Afterlife, but not before trading out Johnny to Cuvo's ult.
Dardes, the last member inside of the team fight for the Warriors, gets picked up by Emilito, and the Valhalla Valkyries punish the overextension from Nika. Gets a great initiation again, but you can't walk in 1 versus 4, not against a team with this kind of lead.
Beads out a vote from just one hammer on Raffer, and Emil now with that coerce buff onto him, getting some extra damage, but they're not looking for the Fury, they're looking for the fight. Cuvo's got a Deathbane away. Into the leaf goes Emil. He gets spotted out by Vote instantly. Gets the ultimate out of him as well. That's all of his safety gone, but Vote trying to trade it out. Luckily, Ducky is there to save the day and get one, but Zeros will have to trade out there, take one for losing Emil.
Valhalla Valkyries need to get this Primal Fury, man. I think they were in a position to do it beforehand. They didn't need to go for those extended picks, and instead they do so at the cost of their ADC. To be fair, that was mechanical difference there. I mean, Vote just straight up won the auto trade despite missing his own ultimate, and Emilito cost himself his life as well as both defensive relics, which means that I think the team fight from the Valkyries takes a major hit now. Emilito has essentially 0 safety inside of the next engagement, and despite a clean team fight win, the Valkyries wanted more. They went for more kills and cost themselves the neutral objective.
And it may be a little bit of the struggle that we've seen from them. How often do we see the Valkyries up 6,000 gold 21 minutes into the game? How often do we even really see them in a lead 21 minutes into the game? And now that they have full control, it seems that they're struggling to find out what to do with it. Do we go for more kills? Do we go for an objective? Raffer seems to want to try and go for this objective here. Going to clear out that ward one more time. And Nika, again, the first one for the Warriors to the front line.
It's not the worst position to find yourselves in on the side of the Valkyries. Sure, you don't get the objective, but you did win the team fight. You have been winning the team fights, and with the Primal Fury still up, that is a POI on the map that the Oni Warriors cannot ignore. They have to step up here. They don't want to fall further behind. At the 6,000 gold lead, a Primal Fury essentially spells Fire Giant for the Valhalla Valkyries, so the Warriors have to put up their defense here.
Dardes going to miss the stun on Ducky. He's just going to throw the flail over and hit Neil with a little bit of damage, and continuing to stack around this Primal Fury, but the Valkyries unwilling to pull it just yet. Still seeing if they can bait anyone forward, but no one from the Warriors are wanting to step too far forward. No one wants to fully commit to this fight just yet from either team.
Raffer utilizing his own coerce just to make sure he stays topped off. He's playing very far forward, trying to find this poke, but the Primal already low.
Nika in the back with a 2-man knockup, gets the dragon out of Raffer, but Johnny picks up Vote and brings him back to the team. Johnny going to use the beads and the brutalize on top. Vote
no
way
able
to make it out with the Bifrost just barely, and with that the poison takes down Johnny. Now Cuvo forced to leap away, but at the cost of Neil Ma. Zero's picking up that kill. Now looking at Dardes, roots him in with the Lord of the Afterlife, slows him down with the sickle. Dardes not gonna make it out of there. Ducky picks him up and still maybe looking for more.
The Warriors keep leaving Dardes alone. How many times have we seen Dardes just get isolated inside of these engagements? On the retreat, sure, the call is get out, save yourself, I suppose, but Dardes can't do that. He's got 1 leap backward, 1 leap forward. It doesn't escape you away from a aggressing Osiris or a Raijin.
Pincer maneuver. Cuvo going into the backline, gets stunned, has to use the beads instantly. Thunder crash out of Emil to get away. Ducky and Emil also low as well as Raffer, and will just barely get taken out by the Odysseus proc from Vote. And just as quickly as they tried to go for that Primal Fury, they pushed them away. But Cuvo looking for more, gets the Deathbane off the Cobra's Kiss, and the Thunder Crash in, though, will punish and finally take down Cuvo.
But Cuvo was just there to create space. The Oni Warriors had their eyes on the prize itself, and Primal Fury will go their way. And it's that issue you were talking about just a moment ago. The Valkyries, not used to playing with the leads that they have, are instead emphasizing the team fight a little bit too much for my liking. It's a game of Smite is won by the objectives, be it permanent or neutral. Primal Fury now going to give you percentage damage toward the Fire Giant, as well as mitigation. So now the Oni Warriors, despite finding themselves at a 4,000 gold lead, and that is a 2,000 gold swing in their favor, by the way, I think are in a very good position to be the aggressors onto the Fire Giant itself. So the Valhalla Valkyries, in an attempt to mitigate loss here, are going to at least try and strip away this Pyro.
They're going to try and get a little bit of gold for themselves and at least strip one neutral objective off the map so that way the Warriors can't grab it. It's just going to be Ducky and Johnny taking this one down. No help necessary, though Rapper does throw a hammer over the wall just for good measure. Pyromancer does go down to keep Valhalla Valkyries in the lead, but it's not that larger lead we saw earlier. They were up 6, nearly 7,000 gold, but it swung down closer to about a 4,500, 5,000 lead now.
And when we're talking about scaling, you gotta bring up the Oni Warriors, man. Tiamat herself is a pretty good argument for the late game of the Oni Warriors on her own, but Neoma is going to only get more tanky. I mean, he's starting to catch up to Raffer, finally gets that second relic available earlier. You already highlighted the Thorn selection, means that Zeros is going to have a very hard time keeping him off. Emelito, with a very little sustain inside of his build, could be the Death's Embrace as a level up for the Death's Toll, or for a little bit of sustain, is going to struggle against this Kuzenbo. Doesn't have that traditional lifesteal, so all that reflect damage is essentially real damage swinging his way. And the peel from the Valhalla Valkyries isn't great. Their draft is for aggression. They want to start the fight themselves. So if the Oni Warriors get to a point where they get to start the fight, I think that's where they're going to start finding some wins as well.
That's the Valkyries trying to start the fight here as Ducky runs in onto Nika. The Cyclone is there. It's going to get nothing of much value onto it as Ducky picks up Nika. Cuvo goes into the backlink for Zeros, who's now isolated himself, has the Thunder Crash away. Neil low and Neil gone. Emelitu is able to pick him up, but Johnny's separated from the rest of them. Dardes sitting at full health on the Tiamat, doing a lot of damage back to Ducky. Cuvo Fred forced to run away. Johnny, though, is on the hunt and looking for him. Gonna wait to see if he can bait anything out. Unchained is good. Nice stun on top of it. Cuvo does fall down.
These fights are so split up from the Oni Warriors. Dardes doesn't get caught out this time, but isn't allowed to participate in the engagement. Leaves himself at 100% HP. Not a whole lot of damage dealt inside of that particular team fight. And the Valhalla Valkyries find 3 members of the Warriors absolutely for free. Staggered death of Cubo Fred, maybe the most good pick that they got there, because that's 40 seconds that he's going to be removed from the map, which means by the time the Valkyries get to the Fire Giant, what, 30 seconds left on Cubo's respawn. Very tall task now for the Oni Warriors to look for this defense.
Ruination comes out from Dardes.
They know
Gets
both
Raffer to leap away. Fire Giant started up, and Bifrost used by Vogue. That's going to be quite a hefty cooldown for the Hunter on that escape. It's imagining that the fight continues to ensue beyond this. Ducky on the front line trying to keep Neil and Dardes busy, but the Fire Giant unleashed by the Valkyries. They're not willing to commit just yet.
Raffer falls so low to the objective. I mean, at what, 40% HP, he can't tank it up anymore. They can't necessarily look for the team fight either. I think the Valkyries just have to wait for Raffer to head on back to base, or HP 5 and coerce his HP bar back up. But that is a good defense from the Warriors. Essentially, Vote gets spotted out, maybe realizes that he's acting as bait, and forces 2 members of the Valkyries off of the Fire Giant, slowing down their DPS tremendously. And then from there, I mean, TP's out, rides the Bifrost, and the fight fizzles. I mean, Raffer spent 20 seconds tanking up a Fire Giant, and, well, the Fire Giant won that fight.
Very sustain heavy out of the mages here, going for the Blood-Soaked Shroud over the Sacrificial like we've seen more often, but double lifesteal on the side of Zeros to make sure he stays nice and healthy and gets a lot of extra sustain from those abilities. Same with Dardes going for that Soul Gem, those big procs. Nika, he gets pushed over into the mid lane by the 5-man strong wall of the Valkyries. Scorpion will fall down and stripped away from the Oni Warrior side of the map.
And this is the point now where the Oni Warriors draft is starting to hit their stride. They can be the ones to look for these engagements, but despite all that, the Valkyries realize they have to start the fight if they want to win the fight. They have to be the initiators, which is why they're generating so much threat around this Fire Giant. First one to step forward from the Warriors is gonna get gone on.
Raffer takes a lot of damage from fire, but Nika gets stunned out amongst the rest. Frenzy is popped but everybody on the Warriors is on retreat because of it. Rapper up into the Dragon, maybe looking for a target or maybe looking to go back onto the Fire Giant itself. Drops the course onto 2, but they're not willing to fully commit to the Fire Giant. They're looking for the fight after Ducky jumps onto Dardas, but Dardas full heals with that ability and is in no real danger to Ducky. Maybe with Rapper coming over, Dardas might have to be a little more careful. Stun goes through onto the mid laner, gets the Aegis out with the rocket as well, expended from Emil. Dardas down to half, but the rest of the team shows up. 3-man ult from Nika, and Johnny picks up one. Dardas is out.
Ducky burns his bees and makes sure Dardas falls, but a fight ensues.
Nika pushing forward as well as Cuvo gets the ult onto just Zero's boat, finds Rapper in the mix. Ducky is getting low, and into the realms goes one, waiting for the landing on the bottom end of it. It's going to be Zeros who falls down. Cuvo getting the credit for the last hit.
Cuvo Fred spent that entire engagement just waiting for his opportunity. He got spotted out multiple times, but doesn't matter. Just by positioning behind the Valhalla Valkyries generates so much threat on the map that the Valkyries, every time they thought about engaging the fight, had to turn over their shoulders. Is Cuvo behind me? I can't go in. And the second Zeros does decide to engage, well, we saw what happens.
Johnny is here. Neil is getting low as well as the Fire Giant. Neil can't take too many more hits, and now Ducky has rotated over. Neil's going to fall down just to the damage of the Fire Giant, and they may get more. Vote gets rooted in place. Fire Giant does go the way of the Warriors, but they lose out on quite a few with it. Barely into the Bifrost. Vote will make it. Nika may not have the same help, though. Cuvo going to get a nice ultimate to help him out for what he can, and Ducky is now the one who's trying to run away. Warcry from Nika will push him back.
Man, what a tough spot for the Valkyries to find themselves in. For the last 30 minutes, controlling the pace of this game, but one team fight loss gets the Oni Warriors the most important objective on the map. Fire Giant finds its way onto 3 core members of the Oni Warriors. Unfortunately for Dardas and Neil, that's not them, but Nika can tank up these towers and these Phoenixes incredibly well. He can just utilize that HP 5 from Fire Giant to make sure he's constantly inside of these engagements. And who's the most important member for your team to have Fire Giant on? It's probably your ADC. You want to be able to shred these objectives quickly, and well, Vote with a ton of attack speed in his build, and now a Titan's Bane as well, with Fire Giant, enhanced by the way. Yeah, these objectives aren't going to last very long.
No, they do not stand a chance. Towers, gone. Primal Fury, yeah, that one's going to go down fairly quickly too. Neil will be there to make sure he can tank that one up, so Vote minimizes how much damage he takes from it, but Primal Fury will go down very quickly, and like you pointed out, enhanced Fire Giant at that around the waist of the Warriors. The whole game, they've been struggling to really keep it in there. They were down 6, almost 7,000 gold, and now what is it? A 1K lead in their favor.
And the Valhalla Valkyries, not much changes here insofar as their game plan. The defense around these objectives, their Phoenixes, is not incredibly strong. Sure, they can use Zeros to keep the wave out. He is a good deal of ranged damage, but because of the lack of AoE CC on this Valhalla Valkyries draft, means that they're looking for that spearhead style defense. Their best defense is a good offense. They are going to all in once the Oni Warriors start to group up around these Phoenixes. And if they don't win out on that initial engagement, if they don't find a pick off of Johnny's Ragnarok or Rapper's Hammer, well, I mean, that's likely the team fight loss there.
Feeds out of Cuvo Fred as he gets caught out by Rapper in the mid lane. Nika, he gets into the transformation to try and push down this tier 2 in solo, the last tower standing on the Valkyrie side of the map. Meanwhile, you look down, there's still 4 towers that the Warriors have holding on, so even one little team fight may not be enough for the Valkyries to turn this one back into their swing. Cuvo takes quite a lot of damage there from the Raiju. Ducky holding 2 away. Vote uses a fairly long Bifrost again. It's another big cooldown expended from him. Neil going to get a push onto Ducky, right back into Vote. Ducky down to half. Cyclone goes out, but it's just onto Rapper.
So we traded 30% of Cuvo Fred's health bar, and he has Fire Giant to sustain back up for Zeros' beads. Yeah, the Warriors are happy with how that one goes.
Might be looking for more as well. Johnny going to go right up with the Unchained. He'll pick up Cuvo and bring him into the back of the Phoenix, but Cuvo is fine taking this fight under. He's going to get the leap through, but Johnny not going to connect with it. Instead, he might be the one in danger. Nika uses that ultimate, and it forces Ducky to this right side of the map as well. Still looking for Cuvo. He's trying to hit that Phoenix and will need to get out for now. Slows are huge. Johnny goes right back in, and Cuvo may have stayed a little bit too long. Ducky not able to find him with the flail. Johnny still trying to chase him down.
Cubo Fred makes it out. Raffer has to step forward, does not connect the hammer, and that is a clean escape from the Oni Warriors. But the Valhalla Valkyries do maintain the base.
Nika gets hit by the Lord of the Afterlife. Transformation out of Raffer. Nika might be in danger. Emil finds him with the basics and the help of Zero. Neil has to use that watery grave, and Raffer looking for his next target. Who's it gonna be? He's looking at Bo, but everybody else is looking at Neil.
It's going to be a hard fight to maintain from here. Ducky is completely Emilito at 20%, 40% rather, HP, but Oni Warriors only have 3 members left standing. That's enough from the Valhalla Valkyries. Fire Giant buff wears off, going to be spawning in just under a minute, and the Valkyries maintain every single one of their birds. Great defense, and it's because the Oni Warriors take it so split up. Their team fight is very strong at this point, but they split the map, 3 members on the left, 2 members on the right. I mean, the Valhalla Valkyries, sure, they don't have a phenomenal late-game defense, but they didn't have to with how the Oni Warriors approached that one.
Especially when you're putting 2 of the lower hitting members on the right side, they can just say, okay, we'll match your basic for basic onto it. You want to throw jungler solo? Fine, we'll throw a jungler solo here. And our mid laner is going to be enough to keep the minions out of the Phoenix. Going to make sure to hold their defenses on that left and right side. So our Phoenix, yeah, it took about half its health, but if nobody's planning to fight there in the next 30 seconds to a minute, it's going to heal itself right back up.
I just can't believe the Warriors weren't willing to push their advantage onto Zeros very early on in that engagement. Cubo Fred got Zeros' beats. I mean, that is one of the most important tools on the map right now. Your mid laners are the core source of your damage on both sides, so if they lose out on that defensive relic, all of a sudden they are very easy to shut down. And speaking of those defensive relics, only 1 down on the side of the Warriors, and it's an important one. Dardes, no beads for a full minute.
Everybody's setting up around the Fire Giant yet again. This time the Valkyries are the one on the front lines of it. Raffer takes a little bit of damage from the Cobra's Kiss, and the Cyclone will push him away as well. Neither him nor Ducky want to get hit by all that damage coming out of Dardes, who is topping the player damage chart at 28,000, nearly pushing that 29k mark.
Man, that's a ton of damage. He's beating a solo laner. That's hard to do. They fight all the time. Ducky right behind at 27,000, but it is the Valhalla Valkyries, again, establishing the defensive positioning around the enhanced Fire Giant. 37 minutes into this game, and it started up. Oni Warriors have to step in.
I'm waiting to see where Zeros is going to put that mark out with the Spear of Magus, because as soon as he gets that target, that is the kill option for them. That extra damage boost you can get from that item can do them well, but it's going to come down to who they can actually land some damage onto.
Oh, no.
And Ducky eats a ton of it as he walks face first into Dardes, but Cubo jumps in, and now he's the one who has to go on full retreat. Neil into the back line, off the transformation from Raffer. He's going to water grave Emil and Zeros away, and now he's forced to use that Sumo Slam defensively as well as the ult from Zeros off the last breath poison. He's going to make sure to get away.
So all the Valkyries have left is what? Johnny's ultimate, and that's it. Whereas on the other side, the Warriors still have the initiation from Nika and the survivability from Vote's ultimate as well. The relics across the board, generally, I would say, favoring now the Oni Warriors, who maintain the majority of their defensive as well as good initiation inside of the blink from Nika. Whereas the Valhalla Valkyries, they don't have their frenzy, survivability loss from the meditation. Raffer is going to be down for about 2 minutes. 2 minutes left on Ducky's beads, 2 minutes left on Emilito's beads as well. That was a team fight that the Valkyries start, and well, Ducky just goes a little bit too deep on his own. Walks head first into Dardes, and I don't know about you, J-Mac. 38 minutes in the game, I don't want to stand in front of a Tiamat. She chunks.
I mean, you saw what she just did to Ducky. Put him well under half health, and that was with a singular ability. Emily, too, with an Elixir of Power online now. That's how late into this Valkyries game that we have gone, that our carry is now picking up an Elixir this stage through. That's a huge expense, 3,000 gold to pick that one up.
And he also upgrades the Death's Toll into the Death's Embrace, so we'll get a little bit of sustain inside of the kit. Should be able to at least tank up Fire Giants. He can solo out Gold Furies, Oni Furies if he so chooses, but instead it's the Oni Warriors going for that line of play. Should be able to split up the map a little bit, and already. Now Dardes leaning back on a released Tiamat strategy here. I'm going to send my lizards down the center and force someone to respond. And who's that someone? Johnny has to go back all the way. This will create space for the Oni Warriors to step forward and potentially try and establish a vision advantage around the Fire Giant itself. But looking at the wards in pocket, only one sentry available right now, and it's Vote. And Vote can't be the one stepping into the Fire Giant pit. He goes that far forward, he's just about as good as dead.
Not just can, I don't think you want to be the first one to step into that pit if you are the carry for it. 6 slot on just about everyone, just the supports. Looking to finish off their last item, and speaking on to Anil, looks like he might be going for a Pythagorum's piece potentially for the support. He's already gone 1 damage option with the Divine Ruin, get a little bit of anti-heal. Now looking for maybe a little bit more of a team-based item here.
Man, Neil is so annoying. Gets a little bit more power, already has a good deal of Reflect because of the Thorns pickup and just being Kuzenbo. Neil's been struggling to find his spots here. He's been playing a much more defensive role inside of the team fights as of late, instead of being that initiator with the Watery Grave, just acting as that backline disruption instead. Has been trying his best to hang out with his buddy Dardes, and, well, Dardes has been benefiting from it greatly, even if it isn't reflected inside of the slash line. It is 1-4 onto that Tiamat, but he's been 1-4 for a while, so clearly Neil Ma's efforts are going rewarded.
You can just see that the Valkyries don't want to push too far forward. Oni minions starting to push up in both of the side lanes. The mid dealt with by Johnny. Now Raffer almost at half health just from the damage that Dardes puts out. It's a blink in from Neil, but he doesn't find anybody with the sumo slam. But Raffer still takes some hefty damage there from Dardes. Still continuing to poke through. Gonna fan out those shots, get some damage, but Nika walks in, and an ultimate from Kubo on top of Zeros. He's forced up into the Taiko drums. He's gonna fear away the frontliners, but Kubo is able to pop them and spread that poison around. Raffer is very low in health, and so is Emily. He gets collapsed on by the Warriors and taken down. 5 still standing for the Warriors, but 2 already out for the Valkyries.
That was Nika saying, look guys, we're 40 minutes in, I'm sick of losing. I'm just going to walk in, press the 4 key. That's exactly what happens. Finds the multi-man knockup, forces Zeros to retreat. Kuvo Fred with a great flank, joins the fight, gets the ultimate onto Zeros. The poison spreads as well. And then right after that, Nika in the rage dance uses the dash to block, stiff arm Emilito out of that Rocket Raccoon. Well, Emilito, now stuck in 4 members of the Oni Warriors, is not going to survive for very long. 30 seconds left on the mid laner and 30 seconds left on the ADC for the Valhalla Valkyries. This is a great opportunity for Fire Giant number 2.
And even when Emil comes up, he's not going to have his relics available. Johnny has to leap away from Nika. Ducky trying to frontline, but he gets pushed by Neil and has to lose his beads because of it. Deathbane into the back, catches him on the ring for such a long time. Ult's in place, and the ticks from the ultimate are starting to go through. Dardes consumes his life and puts him on the gray screen. And that's going to be a full retreat from the Valkyries. The Warriors now with full advantage around this enhanced FG.
But Emilito has now respawned. Zeros has respawned as well, so all Raffer has to do is buy a little bit of time, but easier said than done. That hammer, not a lot of threat.
That Fire Giant getting very low. Kuvo goes into the back, looking for a Raffer. Dives in under the Fire Giant.
Taiko!
So does Johnny. Up is the ultimate. The Valkyries steal the enhanced Fire Giant away. And a full-scale retreat from the Valkyries now with their prize in hand.
Man, Zeros goes into the Taiko drums too early, by the way. First shot, whiff. Second shot, whiff. Third shot, that's all we needed. 373 damage confirms the objective for 4 members of the Valhalla Valkyries, and it's all thanks to the veteran leadership of iRapper. Knows, I can't just walk into the Fire Giant right now. I'll die. That's a death sentence. Instead, goes all the way around the back, forces the Oni Warriors to send a member to chase him down, jumps over the wall, and the Warriors say, all right, we can't drop it low. Rapper's here. He's standing too close. We got to wait for him to use the hammer. Does finally use the hammer, does not confirm the objective, but buys just enough time for Zeros to get in there.
And luckily for us, we get to watch that steal from the perspective of Zeros as he goes right up into it. Like you said, a little bit early there, misses 2, and manages to get that 3rd one in the 4th just as an extra measure to guarantee and secure that one down. So 4 members now with the enhanced Fire Giant for the Valkyries after a team fight that went so well for the Warriors.
And now the Valkyries have got plenty of towers to start to work their way through. Gold not so important at this phase of the game. We're talking about just buying more wards, talking about getting maybe even potentially double elixir at this point. It is an elixir of defense selection from Kubo Fred, by the way, so that's 50 prots both ways. Going to be very tanky inside of this one. But Valhalla Valkyries are now looking to siege, and I think they're making the right call. These tier 2 towers don't matter. We're not looking for the gold. We don't care about the experience. It's about the pressure on map. So go ahead and try and create a win condition. Eliminate just one Phoenix, and then the Titan becomes exposed, is able to take some damage, and the Oni Warriors have to play very defensively. And the Valhalla Valkyries, we talked about it earlier, their defense not good, but their offense, that's what this draft is about.
Rapper goes in, gets a disarm onto Nika, but he doesn't care too much about it. The frenzy is popped, and onto the Phoenix the Valkyries will go, but into the back line goes Nika, looking for something. Bird goes down, Watery Grave onto 2. Johnny's going to pick up Neil and hold him in the middle of everybody, but Nika is the one who strikes first blood in the fight, taking down Emilitu. Maybe looking for Rapper on the back end of it. Rapper not going to make it out of this one. Gets a nice stun, and he's going to leap away. That D-Transform's going to come soon, or maybe just an even better route. And now it's Ducky and Johnny to fight against Dardes. Zero got left alone, and Dardes is able to pick him up with the help of his full minion. And now Johnny and Ducky on full retreat, but the Warriors can just turn towards the enemy side.
Well, look, the Valkyries got the Phoenix, but at what cost?
Why are they
3
still chasing?
members here. I think the Oni Warriors might just send 1 member to keep the Valhalla Valkyries here and maybe even potentially look to end this game. Keep your eyes on Vote. He's working his way down the center of the map, and it is very late into this game. I'm talking 45 actual human minutes, so we're talking 40 to 30 seconds on the closest respawns from the Valks.
25 seconds on Emilitu. He'll be the first one to respawn. Johnny never had a chance to get back because he's been in constant chase. Uses the Ragnarok just to buy away from the ultimate of Cuvo, but now they'll start pushing up towards the right-hand side. 10 seconds left on Emil. Johnny no ultimate, and 4 pushing up the right-hand side. Into the throne room they will go. Emilitu up in 2 seconds. Titan started up. Big stun from Johnny. Emil comes through. Neil's going to try and push him away. Titan is falling low, and Emil doesn't have the damage to stop it along with them. And the Valkyries look so strong to start this one out, but ultimately it is the Warriors who come out on top.
You know what my concern is now, J-Mac? My entire concern for the Valhalla Valkyries is the knowledge. They know that's probably the best they've played all year, and they go unrewarded for it. That has got to be so tough on their mental. And they have to keep playing this set, by the way. There's more games to come. I worry for them. Hopefully, they keep their head on their shoulders and realize, hey, at least at the end of the day, we played incredibly well. And they did. They controlled the pace for the first 35 minutes of this game.
And with that one, the Valkyries, unfortunately, will fall down in game number 1. We'll be back with the desk right after this break.
Gotta take off my jacket for this one. Oh, dude, this...
No, I know he was supposed to take you out last weekend, but he got busy.
Okay, sorry, is it sorry, does? She just wanna cut up in the car, I told her start it up. I don't wanna see it from your eyes unless it's Cartier. Ran into my old chick, she said you ain't playing fair. Playing fair, playing fair. Nah, I ain't playing fair. Playing fair, playing fair. Nah, I ain't playing fair. Asked her why she staying there, she said she don't know. I had to ask her more, but I really had to go and get my bop on. Yeah, I get my bop on. If she needs some good, tell her she got hop on. She know I'm the top dog, I know she a hot one. Balenci's on the feet, and you know I got the socks on. Yeah, I get my bop on. Yeah, I get my bop on. If she needs some good, tell her she got hop on. She know I'm the top dog, I know she a hot one. Balenci's on the feet, and you know I got the socks on. She said with my hot sauce, she
Right, shop.smiteproleague.com so you can sit in comfort wherever you happen to be. If you're a Valkyries fan, which I think a lot of people were for a lot of that game, look, 45 minutes, it's bouncing back and forth. They give us a nice competitive one. Well, guess what? You can get them a onesie. You can also go and get yourself all sorts of SPL-branded merch to rep it out wherever you are. I know my wife just yesterday wore the Pride shirt through the airport. She went to visit her family, but you can go get yours, shop.smiteproleague.com. And, of course, thanks to Inside Apparel for all the awesome and actually, like, very, very comfortable merch. I think we were, what's it called, with the Leviathans on the media day on Monday. And that blanket is a really nice, like, I need an SBL blanket. Like, I don't buy their stuff. Buy our stuff, but, like, if we get one, it's a good blanket. And anyway, it's Gormizer, it's Taco. I got really off on merch there for some reason.
Honestly, it's fine, Gore. If anything, you've inspired me. Tomorrow, I'll be repping the beanie.
You'll be repping the beanie?
I'll bring in the beanie back.
Well, bring it. You're bringing the beanie back, baby. We need an SBL fanny pack. Anyway, this is stuff I need to message Auburn, not stuff that needs to be on the broadcast. The Warriors are the ones who win that game. Not the way that you would have thought, though. I mean, that is a wild roller coaster of a game bouncing back and forth between them. And the Warriors end up coming out on top after an enhanced Fire Giant steal. They were down in the early game. I mean, the Valkyries did a lot to give themselves a lot of power here and make this as contested as possible.
Unfortunately for the Valkyries, that late game just did not pan out the way they were hoping. Even after such a hype EFG steal from the man himself, Zeros, it just still wasn't enough for the Valhalla Valkyries to actually create a gap between themselves and the Oni Warriors. Oni Warriors just consistently setting themselves up for success by finding picks where the Valhalla Valkyries least expected it. They did such a great job just kind of ambushing the Valkyries in the jungle. They never really gave them an opportunity to really look to collapse upon the base itself of the Oni Warriors. And also have to attest to the fact that solo lane matchup, Gore, probably not one that many people were keeping an eye out for, but Ducky brought the hands to Nika, and Nika, I'll admit, Gore, it's a bit of a surprise seeing him get soloed back to back, but even still, Nika having the mental fortitude and the understanding, okay, might not have respected the Osiris matchup as much as I probably should have in the laning phase, hence the deaths to Ducky early on, but the way that he was able to bring that one back in to the Oni Warriors' favor, the impact that he had in the team fights, regardless of how that laning phase broke down, that just kind of showcases the sort of talent that I think Nika provides in that solo role.
Not just solo kills going Ducky's way. One of them was so fast that it caught everybody off guard. It caught the casters off guard, me off guard, I think Doug as well. Like, everybody's like, I'm sorry,
yeah,
solo lanes.
We had to run it back on the first blood.
Nothing's supposed to happen over there yet. It's not even 2 minutes into the game. You're supposed to relax. And he was able to run it for a little bit. I think it was 7-2 there for Ducky. Only 2 deaths that entire game. I think he went like 30 minutes before he died, but it kind of showcased the downside because Immel had 6 deaths, Zeros had 4 deaths. Like, all the deaths maybe didn't come towards Ducky, but were pushed beyond him towards the backline, and it was kind of the unfortunate scenario. Yeah, your Osiris is alive, and he's doing great. None of your carries are surviving the fights, though.
And I think that is one of the primary differences as well in that matchup is Osiris can definitely be a strong reckoning force in that laning opposition period. But when you try to actually transition things more into the team fight approach, I think that that's where the Valhalla Valkyries still have a lot of struggles. You can see some of the disjointment that takes place throughout their team fight engagements, target focus, a little bit all over the place at times even from this Valkyries. But it's at least established the fact that Ducky definitely knows what he's doing, or at least enough to find himself ahead if given the right tools to work with. This is also one of the first sets, I believe, where we're actually seeing Ducky's pick be reserved as one of the last.
And Osiris, the entire time, I mean, that was something that is bonkers because he's been banned a lot. He's been first picked by a lot of these teams. He was last picked. Not looked at in any of the bans, not looked at by either of the teams until the very end. I mean, I anticipate with Ducky having a performance like that you probably gravitate towards that Osiris again, or maybe the Warriors try to ban him away and control that. But the bans last time made sense. I mean, the Tiamat maybe got a little out of hand, but the Valkyries had gone for the Artemis, the Odin, the Emoja. All three of those have been pretty much up on the high list. Same thing, Gilgamesh, Terra, Morgan, Le Fay. Like, the top 6, it's so difficult to choose anything further beyond what was already there.
I think the point that I'm more so trying to make about the whole Ducky and solo lane in general is that if you wait, like, reserve the pick for him, fine, but also try to play through him more often.
Yeah.
We didn't really see Johnny being as active in that solo lane. I get it. I understand his attention had to be shifted elsewhere, more towards that duo and mid discussion, but I do think that it is important for... Oh, yeah, see, Nika even acknowledging it. All right? Nika even acknowledging it. You guys have to remember once upon a time ago when Nika first came in to the solo lane and the SPL in general, he had to go through the forces of Ducky, and Nika was pretty much the league's punching bag back then. Forgot what it feels like until today.
That's one of the team maybe not unfamiliar with it, but maybe a little bit there for Nika himself. Morgan Le Fay taken off the board immediately by the Valkyries, who have opted into first pick here. As the losing team, they get that choice. Warriors on the other side take away the Gilgamesh. And this is the interesting conversation I think we've gotten to have a couple of times. But when it's the Valkyries, Tiamat was picked up more recently for them, but is definitely one of those picks that teams have been less likely to ban from second pick if they know that the Valkyries are either going to take it from you or they're going to let it through because they know they're not going to win with it.
It's just so challenging, I think, for the Valkyries to really utilize that Tiamat to its utmost potential, hence why they feel better off just taking it out of the game entirely.
Yeah.
I do like this switch-up, though, from the Valhalla Valkyries. I think it's definitely in their better interest to not allow the Oni Warriors another opportunity to have that Tiamat on their side once again. However, with all that being said, I would definitely like to see the Valkyries maybe try to orient themselves. I could see them potentially going for an Artemis first pick here. I'm not going to lie, Gore.
You know what? I completely forgot about Artemis. I don't know why, because she's been at the top of either bans or picks every single game she's been available. And not a bad pickup for them. I'd like to see what Emilito can do on that, because we've gotten to see Emil on a wide variety of picks. It's weird that I think the most successful that we've gotten to see them is on the Soul, the Chronos, like the not necessarily meta picks. But that Artemis is not going to get taken through for the Valkyries. Banned away by the Warriors. Maybe on the exact same line of thinking as you, which is, hey, you know what would be a really good pick for Emil? This would be a very comfortable pick as well.
Smart ban away as well for the Oni Warriors. Again, following it up with the Terra. Not going to allow Raptor or anybody on the Valks to have an opportunity to try and utilize that Earthen Fury in their arsenal. And with the Emoja having been banned, I think that it's entirely up to the Valhalla Valkyries where they want to go with this one. Soul is something that, again, I feel is a relevant part of the discussion when it comes to this Valhalla Valkyrie squadron. I think Soul is safe, flexible. Odin, however, going to be the top pick of choice here. And that's a pretty strong power pick. I think Odin has definitely been kind of slowly but surely working his way into the conversation as far as gods that could be very problematic right now.
And if you remember last game, the Valkyries had banned it. If you remember last week, it's because Oni Warriors, Nika, single-handedly carried a game on the Odin against the Kings. And so it's definitely something you do not want him to have in his hands. The Warriors reply with a Heimdall Serket. I'm going to be honest, Takio, that's not really the highest priority of either pick. I mean, Heimdall and Serket treated them really, really well last game, but they aren't top-tier picks that we're used to seeing up there. The Warriors are just going for comfort.
But they are picks that I think suit the Oni's playstyle, especially given how those laning phases went in game number 1. Heimdall, Circuit, relatively safe. A lot of survivability behind these picks. And Odin, Fafnir, you've definitely got a very consistent and strong front line here for the Valhalla Valkyries, but I think also that Heimdall selection put pressure onto the Valkyries to try and solidify their dual lane early on, because otherwise, Emilito, no doubt in my mind, he would have had that Jingwei banned from him yet again.
Being picked up in the top 3, I think I'd have to double check it, but I'm pretty sure that the Valkyries are the only team. Maybe there was a couple Barra games I know that he played Jingwei, but even still, I don't think that they locked her in at the top 3 that too often. So it was mostly the Valkyries. 7 out of 13 top 3s have been this team. And it is exactly what you'd expect. It's a comfort pick for Emilito. It feels like home base, admittedly. And, especially against Heimdall, you have to talk about the safety of the lane. But the Morrigan has been locked in on the other side. Not only a great pick for Dardez, but now you've got an Odin just waiting for you on the other side for you to be able to transform into.
I'm thinking more so about that double Circuit potential that the Oni Warriors have got going for themselves right now. It's one thing to try and escape a single Circuit that Cubo's piloting for Zeros. And you have to remember, in game 1, what happened to Zeros the entire time? He's just being chased by the likes of the Oni Warriors throughout the entirety, it felt like, of that 45-minute game. Yeah. And so you can imagine how frustrating that's got to be already for Zeros. And now for him to be looking at this lineup from the Oni Warriors, I know that he can already tell he's in for a treat this game.
Well, what a weird world we live in. So Kuzenbo, that makes sense. When you're banning against Neil, and it takes something, admittedly it takes something away from Raffer, but he's got Fafnir, so who cares? That feels fine. Kepri also makes sense. Limit Neil as much as you can. Giannis, we haven't seen him a whole ton, but still someone who has been a prominent mage. Zhang Kui has been banned. That's the one that throws me for a loop. Although the Valkyries have loved going back to that one. I guess that, I mean, the Raijin that was available is still available. I mean, Zeros could theoretically just go right back to the same pick.
But as far as Zeros is concerned, Raijin, I think, could definitely struggle up against the likes of a double Circuit. There's a lot of die potential already in this Oni Warriors composition. Shing Ten's only going to dogpile on top of that. I think that Merlin is a very smart pickup, because Merlin could be very problematic for that die potential that I was just talking about for the Oni Warriors to actually try to collapse on. Merlin does so much damage in an instant gore. He's got a lot of shred potential, and I think that this is very well suited to the Valkyries in terms of that counter initiation playstyle.
Well, we're going to get another treat, Taco. Apollo locked in. When it's alongside that Jingwei, that's got to be Johnny, who's going to be taking it into the jungle.
That's fair. I mean, Johnny's had some success as far as picks are concerned, but even when we've seen Johnny establish leads on the Apollo jungle, we've never really seen those transpire to something more. So I think that this would be a great opportunity for the Valhalla Valkyries to maybe showcase, hey, we know what we're doing when we pick this Apollo jungle. It's not just for, you know, a couple of kills here and there to make it look flashy while we lose. But I think the primary concern that I have is you've got all this stuff that complements the Fafnir. Odin, on the other hand, it just seems like such an awkward and forced pick here for the Valhalla Valkyries. I'm not really sold that this plays super well into their composition, because you can have strong pick score, but if you don't have anything to complement them, it kind of takes away from the strength of that pick.
And it does kind of lend its question. I mean, Ducky just had a great Osiris game. Is that going to translate well into this Odin, or is it going to come full stop? And I mean, Nika's been playing this Bologna. We got to see it a little bit last week. If you watch the Nika streams, you see it pretty often as well. Like, it is something that he has been practicing as much as possible. And so it feels like something that the Warriors were more well-equipped for, more well-prepared for in this matchup. Plus, I mean, you had kind of mentioned it, but like Apollo Jingwei, like even a small silence is a silence nonetheless, and it's going to stop those autos.
I think the main thing I'm also taking note of is that as in terms of reinitiation, Oni Warriors, they've got an endless amount of it, but as far as the Valhalla Valkyries are concerned, I mean, what's your point of initiation here? Fafnir jumping in, turning into Draconic form, it's just, the crowd control is definitely worrisome here on the side of Valhalla Valkyries. This is a composition that relies almost entirely on kill or be killed mentality.
It was a little worrisome in game number 1 as well, and admittedly they still lost game number 1, but it took them 45 minutes to get there. But it just feels, especially with the way that Bologna has just Eagles rallied her way into the meta, that things are going to slide a little more in favor of the Warriors this time. I mean, is all the weight on the Apollo jungle right here to perform?
Not necessarily entirely on the
Good,
Apollo
because
jungle.
they need a little bit more.
I think more so it's going to stem a little bit into Ducky's side of things. And, well, the one thing that I would like to see is if Ducky's able to establish a clear lead, they need to play off of it.
Well, Ducky, the pressure is on you. You look good on the Osiris. Can the Odin do it here in game 2? Let's find out with the casters.
Thank you, Gore and Taco. Back onto it yet again. J-Mac and Mifflin here, bringing you the action on the calls. Doug, bringing the action on the camera for you. Yeah, yo, we threw Dave in the back there
God,
to kind of give Doug a little bit of a hand. We needed Dave to get a little tutorial. That way he can one day run the spectator. But it is going to be Doug ultimately piloting it.
Thank
Dave's
God.
just watching in the background for it onto it. But like I said, J-Mac and Mifflin here in game 1. The best I think we've seen from the Valkyries all season. That was a killer performance by them, but they come up just a little shy in the end game. Now the question comes down to, what is their mental like in game number 2? How are they going to bounce back here in this game?
Well, we're hoping well, right? I mean, I want to see a repeat performance from the Valhalla Valkyries, and they've got a draft that can certainly work. I mean, we got to talk about the spicy picks. Apollo Jungle, obviously not something we're going to see every day. Maybe unless you watch a Johnny stream, then you might see it every day. It brings a lot of global presence, has decent gank potential, as the CC lockdown is actually surprisingly pretty good. The moves, the dash, applies a slow at the end of it. The Mez sets up very well for subsequent CC from their team, so I do like the odds of Johnny finding a little bit of value from this pick. And outside of that, they've got great scaling. I mean, Emelito back on one of his signature picks, Raffer piloting the Fafnir makes your entire team very strong in the late game through Coerce, Teamfight AoE CC inside of Ring of Spears from Ducky. I like this draft a lot, but I think Taco kind of summed up the Oni Warriors draft pretty well on her own. It's frag or be fragged. That is a lot of aggression over there.
Speaking of, Johnny actually goes up and steals away the back Harpy camp away from Cuvo, and I think he just narrowly walked past him to where he couldn't be seen for it, so they didn't even know that he had walked up and stole it, at least until Cuvo walks back and goes, hey, who took my Harpy camp?
Probably Johnny, right? Like,
I hope it was Johnny.
I don't think Cuvo needs to ask, man. This guy's so good, J-Mac. You think he has to ask his team who's stealing his farm?
Why are you letting him take it? That might be the better question he's asking.
Guys,
him.
what the heck? My back camps.
Why is there an Apollo in my jungle? What is he doing all the way back here on my side of the map?
Yeah, in the early game especially, Apollo not really well known for his great jungle clear, at least throughout the early, and Circuit is known exactly for that. So you got to think that Cuvo should get an advantage insofar as farm throughout this match.
Rafford taking a bit of poke here from Vote and Neil.
We meditating.
Push them under tower, but yeah, he's got the pulses to come through there and keep himself alive. He may lose out on that Scorpion, however, as the last hit does go the way of Vote. Rafford and Emil just going to team up and keep this lane at bay here. Interesting, you know, I know that this is kind of Emil's fallback too, but it's interesting to see after the performance on the Donza that he would just default back to it.
Yeah, I think that it's just a comfort pick for him, and he knows that he's not really looking to play through this lane to find aggression. Instead, likely wants to play around Ducky inside the Soul lane as he's got a ton of lockdown, or play through Zeros in mid, so just goes to a safe pick.
Ducky gets the cage onto Nika. Will we see another solo kill come out of it?
Dude,
we will. The pulse from the spear is enough damage, and Ducky strikes first yet again.
Yo, Nika who? Ducky sold him, what, 2 games in a row? 3 solo kills inside of this set for Ducky? That is ridiculous. I mean, I am not mincing words when I say Nika is potentially one of the best solo laners to have ever done it. He's certainly within the top 3 here in Season 8 and has been a consistent factor for his team. And, well, Ducky's not making it look like that.
No, Ducky is really trying to hold everything that he can into that solo lane, and now with 3 solo kills of his own, Johnny diving in onto Vote. The hammer comes down. Vote will make it through the Bifrost, and luckily for him, the cavalry has arrived. Cuvo and Neil on the scene. Raffer going to try and help him out, but it's going to be the beads out of Johnny, and the Deathbane is enough to take him down.
That's interesting that the Valkyries duo lane didn't step forward there. Had they walked up past the wave, they could have very easily caught Vote on the Bifrost teleportation. I mean, you know where he's going. It's a giant floating crystal in the center of your lane. He's not hiding exactly where he's leaping to, and Johnny was left high and dry inside of the jungle. Was at least able to strip away a little bit of resources from Vote, just the Bifrost.
Now it might be Rapper in trouble here as he gets picked up and double ulted, maybe even a third one if Vote's willing to throw it out, and he will. Right into the realms he'll go, and crashing down back to the gray screen as soon as he lands. Vote is the one to put him in the dirt.
Yeah, Oni Warriors didn't like having to work real hard last game, seems like. They want this one to be a little bit quicker and already establishing pressure inside of the duo lane. Valhalla Valkyries, though, can rely on Ducky to continue his pressure because he's one level up.
He's going to try for it. Johnny rotates over to this right-hand side, but Nika still has that Eagles rally. Well, Johnny, instead of looking for the kill, he's going to look for the buff instead. Go ahead and steal that one away. Nika will spot him out onto it. And again, everybody's yelling, why is this Apollo stealing our jungle on our side? Johnny gets a nice mez. The dash will get him out for now, but transformation out of Dardes. He's going to go into the circuit and immediately throw him into the clutches of Nika. Johnny still alive. No one's gotten the final shot yet, until Dardes lashes in and gets the Cobra's kiss.
Legitimately, Johnny pathed perfectly there, though. The second Oni Warriors group up right outside the cage on the right side, he's like, all right, it's not towards my tower, but if I walk in the jungle, that's my best odds at surviving. Unfortunately, pretty difficult to run away from two Circats, and, well, he wasn't quite successful in doing so. And sure, he was able to strip away the blue buff, but doesn't secure his own. So that is a net wash insofar as jungle farm. Oni Warriors, though, come out ahead because they find a kill.
Yeah, they're up 1,000 gold now. What last game was all in favor of the Valkyries thanks to Ducky's early work is not quite the same level this time around. Ducky still able to maintain somewhat of a lead over onto this right-hand side, but the golden experience are starting to teeter in favor of the Warriors so far.
Yeah, don't ever bring up Ducky for that, though. I mean, Ducky's putting in his work. He found that first blood. Nika is certainly struggling inside of this lane matchup, and I'm not talking about Odin versus Bologna. I'm talking about Ducky versus Nika. Ducky has just had the better end of it so far inside of this set, but unfortunately for Ducky, the rest of his team cannot quite say the same. They are struggling across the board. One level deficit in the jungle, one level deficit in the hunter role, and Ikavale is the selection for both hunters here. So that will be a lot of fighting in the early.
Double Dark Omen, one onto Rapper, one onto Johnny, who gets up and is able to negate the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel out of Neil Moss. So luckily for him, he'll be able to make it out just in time, and thanks to, well, I guess the lack of damage on the Xingqian earlier on. Rapper and Neil pass each other by, give each other a firm handshake, and then Rapper throws a hammer right into his back as he walks away.
And now the Oni Warriors are trying to do exactly what the Valkyries were doing in Game 1, which is create POIs on the map to force engagements. Vote does spot out the rotation from Emilito thanks to the enhanced vision from his first ability, so is not quite able to stick the Greater Scorpion. But it has just been pressure so far here from the Oni Warriors.
Neil sticking around this red buff, trying to deny the farm for Zero, so we'll at least force him to go back into the mid lane to try and farm that one up. Now Johnny going to be going ahead and securing that red buff for his mid laner, so Zero says no fears losing that one over to Neil.
But Zero's is upset because he didn't get any of that farm. That red buff XP just went the way of the other couple members there, and, well, that's a big source of farm for the mid laner.
Ducky gets taunted out of his spear, but Nika is more than happy, just slapping the cage until it finally falls down. Blink in from Cuvo on top of Johnny, immediately uses the dash to get away from the Eagles rally, taunted back in,
Rip.
And he will fall down. Nika getting the credit for that, but Ducky can't get the shield damage to explode. Instead, it gets burned down too quickly, and Rapper on the backside leaps in, looking for the stun, but misses it onto Cuvo.
It is interesting that Rapper decides to switch targets there. Nika doesn't have any escapes left. The ultimate already used. The dash, well, if you want to call Shield Bash a dash, it's more of a quick step forward. I think even King Arthur's auto attack might take him further forward than the actual dash from Bologna. But all that mobility was down, so had Rapper been able to connect that hammer, likely would have been followed up by the bird bomb from Ducky, but instead shifted his target to Cuvo Fred, and, well, Circuit's pretty elusive inside of the team fights. Very hard to lock her down, and just walks on out of there. Now, 2 levels up is the jungler for the Oni Warriors. 1 level lead for Nika, despite getting first blooded. And, well, the level lead for Vote has only continued to grow, maybe closer to about a level and a half now. The entirety of the Warriors are thriving here in Game 2.
All right, I've spotted the difference as Sir Raffer's playing game 1 versus 2. You see, he bought the Sentinel's Gift in the second slot, and that's just a cardinal sin. You can't buy it behind your set. Now, there's Fighter's Mask, and that's optional. You know, that's their own starter onto that one, so that doesn't count. But as far as every other role goes, you're supposed to get your starter in your first slot.
You know, if you were with any other caster right now, J-Mac, they'd have your back wholeheartedly. But I'm weird. I like starter in the second slot. I think it's just a way to be different, and different's cool.
I bet when you played Ratatosker, you didn't sell your Acorn in order to buy it for your first slot. You just left it there so that way you could buy your starter item and keep that one in the second slot too.
Do people do that? Do they sell
the
the
Acorn?
Acorn?
You sell
to
the
buy
Tier
this?
1 Acorn. That way you could put your starter in the first
that's
slot.
Weird. You're
and
the
then
only
you have
person.
Tier 2 Acorn in the second one.
No, nobody does that.
I do that.
I've never heard of that. You're the only person to have. You're doing more work.
Someone out there's got my back, but somebody needs Johnny's back as Darda is able to collapse onto him. Eagles rally right in place. Is going to give them some extra power inside that jungle, but they don't need it because they've already got their prize.
Now, blue buff is going to be a little bit of an additional prize for them if they're able to strip that one away, and that is exactly what happens. Nika secures that for his team, and, well, this is a little bit more reminiscent of what we're used to seeing from the Valkyries, struggling a bit here inside of the early game. Oni Warriors approaching a 3,000 gold lead, but more indicative of the pace is the experience. Nearly 5K already, 10 minutes in.
Nika going to avoid the spear from Ducky and be able to continue living his life as per usual. Ducky now, despite the first blood, has fallen a little bit behind. All this action from the Warriors has been pushing to this right side of the map. Dardas has been making constant rotations over to the solo lane to try and keep, well, I guess more than anything, keeping Johnny at bay, as he has now fallen 4 times on this Apollo.
Yeah, I wasn't looking. I didn't realize he'd actually died 4 of the 5 times for him, and that's the double-edged sword that is Apollo jungle. If you pull a lead, having another hunter feels pretty good. You're shredding objectives, you're shredding enemy gods, your global presence is really strong, but if you fall behind, you don't get to utilize a ton of CC. Apollo CC is in melee range, and, well, you don't want to stand there when you're about 2 levels down. So now Johnny just has to play the catch-up game, maybe utilize that global presence to outnumber the opposition inside team fights, but where is he going to gank? The Valhalla Valkyries don't really have a lead in any of their lanes, so they're not looking to get aggressive.
Johnny going to get ulted by Cuvo, and will use the beats to get away from Neil's ult. Raffer gets a nice stun, and the moves come out from Johnny just to get out. But he might be looking for more. Goes up into the chariot looking for a drop target, but he might be turning his sights elsewhere as he used that ult to go back towards the red buff instead.
So we've got the global ult down, and the Oni Warriors do have pressure on the map, which could open up the door for subsequent invades, which is exactly what Cuvo Fred is looking for, knowing that this purple buff is spawning soon, or even potentially, I could see the Oni Warriors moseying on over to the Gold Fury and forcing a fight there. Maybe not now, because Neilma finds himself at 10% HP, so maybe the purple buff invade is just enough for him.
Emil able to at least live through the gank of Cuvo this time, only losing out on a purple buff in the process. So hold on to his beads. Cuvo gets stunned out by Raffer and has to use the Death Bane to get back to the safety of the lane, where Dardes will be there to await his presence. And Johnny rotating in onto the Apollo will doing everything he can, but now he's got no beads. Nice Mez, though, will stop the stun coming through, but the Death Bane is more than enough damage, and the poison spreads over to Zeros. Dardes leaping under the tower with that Eagles rally, but he'll get stunned out by Raffer and end that fight in its tracks.
Oni Warriors do take a good amount of damage for that kill, though. Dardes and Cuvo just below half HP, which means that it's likely not a great opportunity for them to look at the Gold Fury itself. If they do spot out Emilito on the back here, maybe can start to look towards it. And, well, Emil doing a great job of denying a little bit of farm. Boat missed out on 2, maybe 3 minions worth of gold.
Neil rotating over to the left side, but he's followed by Raffer right in his shadow, and we'll see if Neil's able to actually get anything here for it. Emil gonna get that Scorpion, so Neil a little too early on the basic to steal that one away. Raffer rotating over as well with them. Will rejoin the duo lane, but it's quite a stark level difference between them, 2 apiece out of the duo laners.
That's a tough spot to find yourself in on the side of the Valhalla Valkyries, which is why I've been harping on it, man. The Oni Warriors, I think, could just rotate. Just go to this Gold Fury. Force the engagement. Valhalla Valkyries did it pretty well in Game 1. We're forcing those team fights, but couldn't quite find the objective itself, so we'll see if the Warriors can do that.
Raffer gets a leap, but he goes right to Nika. Nice stun will stop one, but he's got the Eagles rally afterwards. And Nika's more than happy chasing Raffer down, but luckily for him, he's got Zeros as backup, slows him down, and Darda is all alone into the back. Johnny and Ducky able to try and chase him out, but it's not enough damage, and now Johnny's the one caught out. Cuvo will pick him up. Emil trying to do everything he can, but Neil is just so tanky on the Xing Chen, and Ducky gets left alone against 4.
Yeah, Neil just zones off 3 members of the Valkyries while the rest of his team wins a team fight handily inside the backline. Sure, I mean, Neil drops down to half HP, but who cares? Ducky and Johnny both die, as does the Gold Fury, and now this lead that was just hovering around 4,000 for the last 5 or so minutes is pushing itself even further ahead. Experience essentially doubling, now at 8,000, was around 4,000 last time we checked in, and, well, gold starting to balloon a little bit out of control, about 6,000 at the 14-minute mark.
And you can see where that experience is really starting to bloom. Cuvo Fred, 2.5 levels up on Johnny, 2.5 levels for Vote over Imalitu as well, closer to that 3-level mark by this point after that fight. Draugr will go the way of Vote after he gets pushed back there. Okay, I'm just going to say it now. If you're still getting knocked out of Draugr Pit at this point, you need to learn a little bit. Just back up to the wall. That way you don't get shoved out in your resets.
Hey, look, I'm not going to... I'll join you there. Maybe don't get knocked away by it, but these guys are pros, J-Mac.
They are pros, so they shouldn't be getting knocked out of the Draugr Pit. Come on.
It didn't cost them anything. Man's full HP, and man, I leave Vote alone. He's having a great game.
Anyways, on to it. 15 minutes in. 7,000 gold in favor of the Oni Fury. Yeah, Johnny is not having the greatest time right now. He has been target number 1 on this Apollo, which I'm surprised he went to the Apollo after his Fenrir last game. It wasn't banned away, as to my knowledge, onto it. I'm surprised he went back to the Apollo after the Fenrir looked so good for him.
Hey, look, he's hit some power spikes, though, J-Mac. We got the Aussie, so a little bit of sustain. Does finally hit level 12, gets the Aegis available to him, so should be able to survive some of these engagements a little bit longer. But that's the double-edged sword. We talked about it earlier. Fall behind on Apollo. What's your comeback mechanic? You really don't have one. It's not great jungle clear. It's decent team fight presence. If the team were ahead, we'd be singing the praises of Apollo jungle right now. I mean, towers would be shredded. Gold Furies would not stand a chance, but that's not how this one pans out. And 0-6, it's not a great look.
Raffer's looking for a target. It's going to be Neil who gets hit by the hammer right into the blizzard of Zeros, but not going to do a whole lot of damage just yet. About a quarter of Neil's health taken away from that one. Emil and Vote having a slap box here, but Vote is 3 levels up, and Cuvo's not going to play the honest man onto it. Gets the airstrike with a nice last breath, and needs one more basic after.
Good
Aegis may have just saved his life. He walks out with just a sliver.
That was great usage of the defensive relic to maintain his life, and now Neilma finds himself out of position. Johnny looking to find his first kill.
Gonna get a mez onto Neil, but
Where'd he go?
Dardes ends that one right in its tracks. Eagles rally through. Cuvo gets a double taunt through. Dardes transforms into the Odin, leaves a cage of their own, leaving Ducky the one trapped inside. But Ducky able to get his shield off and able to get back to the safety, back by the tier 1, but he's walking forward again. Emil, did you not learn your lesson last fight?
Yeah, maybe don't step up to Vote. Red buff invade is being attempted here, and Vote will pick it up for himself. Meanwhile, team fight in mid. Cuvo Freder just goes into the tier 2 tower, dips his toe in, says, maybe not, and starts to walk away.
Yeah, you might need to walk a little faster, but the stun misses out of Raffer, and that might be enough for Cuvo Fred to get out. Tier 1 tower still standing, despite the fact that every member of the Oni Warriors were pushing into that tier 1. They don't get the tower. They don't get the follow-up kill after. Now, it might be their own tier 1, or maybe just their support in danger, as Raffer able to get the nice little last hit there with the damage from the Coerce. Tier 1 tower, though, not under threat from the Warriors.
So Neil's dead for 30 seconds. Where can the Valhalla Valkyries go to push their lead? Well, it's not the Gold Fury. That's dead. It's not the Pyromancer. That's also dead. And, well, I don't think they can stick around for this tier 1 tower too much longer. The Oni Warriors may not have gotten too many kills. They may not have stripped away the tier 1 tower from the Valkyries, but they do at least strip the red buff, they reset, and they don't lose out too much. They've already built themselves such a massive buffer insofar as experience and gold that I think taking those risky plays is fine. I mean, they aren't rewarded heavily for it this time around, but had the Warriors gotten just one more kill, had Emilito not been perfect with his Aegis on the left-hand side, that could have very easily spelled the end of a tier 1 and a tier 2 tower. So I like that the Warriors are taking these plays because they realize, look, worst case, I guess one of us dies, and, well, the worst case happens.
all the while, they were able to get the Scorpion for the Valkyries here. That one got stripped away near the Pyromancer pit, so they at least get the enhanced blue and speed buff. That way, Ducky can be happy, and that way Johnny, on his next one at least, will be a little bit happier getting that extra boost to the speed buff. But now immediately the Warriors regroup and set their sights over towards the Oni Fury about to respawn. And whereas Neil, well, he's in the backpack of the enemy team's jungle. He's decided that he is pitching his tent here. This is my portion of the jungle. This red buff has my name all over it, so everybody better back away from it.
He's just leveraging the safety, but it's Dardes going in first, stealths his way into the tower, and finds zeros.
He's able to flick around, but Cuvo finds Johnny in the process, knocked up and slammed right back down. Double kill for Cuvo. Rapper and Emil on full retreat. The airstrike used to get under the tower, and Nika gonna take up a couple of tower shots there, but not make a full commit. Meanwhile, look at Ducky all the way on the right side of the map, not able to rotate in to help his team.
Yeah, Odin was huge in that team fight, and it wasn't the actual one, it was Dardes transforming into him. Ducky doing his best to find whatever he can, is able to strip away a couple of back camps, and that's exactly all he does. Maybe even gets that Tier 1 tower on the right-hand side, but at the end of the day, Tier 1 goes the way of the Oni Warriors. Tier 2 does the exact same thing, and well, the Oni Fury itself, the titular Oni Fury, it's being looked at and vote. Only shreds right now, already down to 50%. It's just up to the rest of the boys to play goaltender.
Doesn't look like anyone from the Valkyries is going to step up. 500 crit that he's got going. He's building crit this game. I just looked down and noticed that Vote's got a Wind Demon already built on this Heimdall. Not going to get the full benefits from crit, but still hitting rather chunkily this early on.
But the Valhalla Valkyries might be going for a Hail Mary here. Neilma, though, spots him out.
He's going to use that ultimate of his own and throw only one away. Rapper going to miss the leap stun, but they'll find the follow-up one after. Neil getting low, but he's going to manage to get away for a moment until Emil gets the final basic. Nico rotates over, and their eyes are set on Dardes the Cage just off the mark, but maybe it's just enough to zone Nico away. Forces the Eagles rally, and Johnny very low has to run, but Cubo's going to find him, toss him against the wall, and mince him up, taking him down. Nika getting the credit for the kill.
Look, I like the strat from the Valkyries. They are struggling mightily. They tried to go for a sneaky fire. Instead, they find Neilma, are able to shut him down with the chase into the tower after the fact. Maybe a bit of an overextension cost them both zeros and Johnny.
And Emil on top of that one as well as he falls down. The persistent Gust not able to save his life into that one. And now what looked like is going to be the Valkyries' chance at a fire giant is now in the Warriors' hand. Nika and Cuvo teamed up with Vote to try and stop this one, but Ducky is here. Still has his leap available, can't blink right in. He's going to go for a very early Raven shout. Toss the spear out. Cuvo getting low, has to walk out of the fire giant pit, and it's just Vote here. Ducky just single-handedly stopped all three of them from going onto it and pushed him away from fire.
Well, maybe jumps in a little bit too far, though. Ducky, you are healthy, but you're not invulnerable. And, well, Nika gets credit for the kill, but might as well give credit to Vote because he shreds off about 80% of the HP bar there. Ducky does a very good job of delaying the fire giant, but again, it's exactly what we saw around that last team fight. The Valhalla Valkyries just find a small win, be it finding a pick on a Neilma like we just saw, or forcing people off of the fire giant. Get a little bit too big for their britches afterward. Dive a Tier 1 tower or chase out 1 versus 3, and both times they get punished.
Last game around this exact same time, it was about a 7,000 gold lead in favor of the Valkyries. This time around, it's a 12,000 gold lead in favor of the Oni Warriors, and they got the 15-3 kill ratio as well. So Oni Warriors have turned this set on its head in this game, at least able to get a very substantial lead over the Valkyries. Emil almost hitting level 20, still needs just a little bit more XP to hit that point, and unfortunately for Johnny, he has been primary target #1 here for the Warriors. 9 deaths on this Apollo jungle.
Look, how Johnny's been playing Apollo, my man wants to be Thor so bad. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be dunking into 3 people over and over repeatedly, at least get a stun off your dunk, but instead Johnny lands and dies 9 times in a row. I mean, look, you can play Rat, that's a pretty good aggressive dunk. Play Thor, that's pretty good too, and
Thanatos.
at least get some CC. Thanatos for an execute, but so far, this Apollo has gotten just about 0 value. 37, 60 damage on the board from Johnny.
Run, Johnny, run. There's 2 of them looking at you, and you are 3 levels down to both of them. But luckily for him, they're not going to dive under that tower. Instead, they'll just push a minion wave in, but maybe look for the fight after with Neil rotating over. Ducky and Raffer are going to find Nika on this right-hand side, but Nika is not deterred one bit. Instead, he's going to continue slapping both of them. Throws out the Scourge onto Raffer, and then we'll be sure to clear out the Harpies for some extra XP. Meanwhile, Neil rotates back over to the right-hand side. And yet again, the Warriors will start setting up for this Fire Giant.
This time, a first true setup with all 5 members alive and ready. And, well, Johnny is going to utilize that global presence to just push out the left-hand side. Wait until it's really time to ult his way over and save the Fire Giant, because that is all you're going to have to ask for him.
Emil is not having a fun time here as Nika pushes him under the tier 2 tower. Neil gets the beads out of Ducky from just his ultimate alone.
Chance.
Ducky has to rotate so far back just to get away from them, and Emil has, luckily, the passive Jing Wei to get right back to the fight soon. Stardust walks forward, transforms into the Odin, leaps into the back, but doesn't find anybody just yet. Zeros switches sentences and gets into the arcane form. Boat falling low. Emil gonna be able to pick him up, trapped inside of the enemy team's cage, but he's got the airstrike to get out. And now Dardes is the one in trouble. He gets a nice kill onto Emil on the back end of it, but Aegis saves him just for a short moment as Ducky is able to pick him up.
Oh, but look at Johnny. Finds his way into the air and could be
cutting off the path.
Zoning ult.
Zoning ultimate for him. Nika's got the Eagles rally. Zero's not able to slow him down, but we'll be able to stop the hammer with
Give
the
Johnny the
mez
kill
on there. And Zeros gets the kill for that one. Unfortunate for Johnny. Not going to put himself on the board, but fortunate for Zeros. Gets his first kill.
And fortunate for the Valhalla Valkyries, legitimately, the Oni Warriors make the exact same mistake that the Valkyries have made repeatedly so far this match, which is chasing a little bit too far for kills. And this opens up the door for the Fire Giant. Neilma and Cuvo on the defense, and Fire down to 50%.
But Zeros left all alone, and Neil's gonna and Cuvo will both recognize that. Cuvo gonna find him, and Neil gonna get a 3-man ult, forces the beads out of Johnny. Fire Giant down to a third. Ultimate comes out with the cage from Ducky, but Cuvo finds Zeros.
They're sticking.
Fire Giant still under siege. They haven't leashed it just yet. Cuvo gonna get a huge double taunt into the knockup of the Fire Giant. Now Rapper and Ducky both at critical health.
Vote picks up the Fire Giant itself. Hey, chase your kills, I don't care. I mean, the Valkyries did the heavy lifting. It's already down to 50%, and Cubo, playing goaltender, buys just enough space. The biggest objective on the map goes the way of the Oni Warriors. Unfortunately for Nika, about 3 seconds too late on the respawn. Doesn't get that around his belt, but probably not feeling too bad. The rest of the boys going to be able to do plenty of work.
In my life, for the Fire Giant at this point, and what do we get on top of it? We also get Zeros to kind of shut down that mid laner a little bit more, sitting a full item behind Dardes right now. And really just across the board, everybody's falling behind. Level 20 out of the jungler, so Johnny, despite all of the deficits going through, he still managed to hit 20 alongside Emily too. So they do have 2 hunters coming into the late game for it, and a crit build coming out of Johnny as well. Wind Demon into the Deathbringer for bigger hitting crits. Now the thing is, he's got to hit those crits onto the enemy team.
Hey, every single time he lands a crit, he's essentially going to get, like, I don't know, another 1,000 damage. So 5 more auto attacks, that crit, and he's doubled his damage. Inside of this game, Johnny has been struggling mightily, and I expect that to continue into the defense, because the Valhalla Valkyries' base defense is not great. They're very reliant on either a cage from Ducky to start the fight or a Raffer miraculous hammer on someone who doesn't have beads. So Nika, I suppose, or Vote for the next second. Never mind, we missed that window. Vote has beads back available. They've got a lot of single target damage on the side of the Valkyries, but that's so hard to execute on in a 5v5.
And the relics are online for Raffer as well. Neil and Nika going to jump right into the foreground.
They just did
Neil
it.
now has to leap away as he's fallen down to about a quarter health. So far, the Phoenix defense successful from the Valkyries, but it wasn't so much of a hard push there for the Warriors, just dipping their toes in the water, seeing what kind of damage is out there, and well, really, Neil gets to feel the brunt of that.
Yeah, sharks in the water. Clearly, Neil must pull his foot out immediately, but luckily he is playing Jing Chen, so has a ton of HP 5, as well as Fire Giant. Keep your eyes on him. Might even look like he's got an Aphrodite attached, is how quickly he's healing, already up to about 80% and ready to go back in.
Oh, he's standing up with Nika and Vote to try and push this one. Meanwhile, it's a 2 split over towards mid. Cubo and Dardes will now make their rotations. Well, at least Dardes will. Cubo will stick around here and have a solo matchup against Johnny. Ducky waiting in the wings for someone to walk forward. All ultimates online for the Valkyries, and all ultimates online for the Warriors as well. No one really expending anything in that last fight.
Only relic that's significantly on cooldown right now is Raffer's Frenzy. That's going to be a good deal of damage lost inside the team fight, but outside of that, completely even.
Neil goes in, looking for an ultimate on top. They're not going to grab zeros because he used the beats preemptively, but he's able to transform just in time to get away until Nika steps forward and hits him with the Scourge. Now, into the Phoenix they will go, as they're able to take that one down quickly. Cage comes out of Dardas to hold Raffer in place, but luckily he's in that dragon form and able to shred it down very quickly. But not in time for that Phoenix to go down. Johnny up into the chariot, hunting for his prey, but who is he going to be able to take down by himself? He's looking at Cuvo, and well, that's about all he's doing is looking at Cuvo, getting that satellite ward up top, but where is he going? He needs to get back to this team fight soon.
He does, and he'll eventually go in, maybe once the Warriors start it up, but dunks it alone and lives. Good for him.
On to 3, but he is very worse for wear. Cuvo going to find him, get the last breath poison, and explode on contact. Now, Cuvo's the one in a bad spot. He's got to run, but there's no Phoenix to deter him. He'll walk right out that left side. And the only Warriors, they'll respect the defense out of the Valkyries for now and all make a retreat.
He wants to be Thor so bad, J-Mac. Just give me a CC on the back of one of these dunks, and the Valhalla Valkyries team fight would have been sick had he been Thor or Rat. That's a 3-man knock-up, a 3-man stun, but instead it's a little bit of a tick of damage, and then he dies immediately afterward, essentially baiting his entire team away from the Phoenix defense. Every single one of the Valkyries that was positioned and ready to keep that bird up had to retreat into their own base to try and peel Cuvo Fred off of Johnny. Unsuccessful in doing so, lose both their jungler's life for the 10th time this game, and the Phoenix as well. 2 Phoenixes down now on the side of the Valhalla Valkyries, and so much gold that I don't even feel like doing the math in favor of the Oni Warriors. Fire Giant spawns in 1 minute. I don't think the Valkyries can step up, but if they don't, I think they essentially lose the game. So they have to step up. It's a rock and a hard place, and it's not where you want to be.
16,000 gold, almost 20,000 experience. But that experience doesn't really matter anymore, as it's a level 19 and 18 for the support. So it all just comes down to that substantial gold lead, because there are still unfinished items and unfinished builds. Zeros, by the way, Zeros still hasn't gone back. What's he doing?
He's going to go clear that wave and die.
And that could very well be the death of the jungler. Make that number 11. Nice mez, but gets caught out of the dash. And,
he missed!
Well, goodbye, Johnny. Cuvo the one to get the credit for that one. 8-0 to kind of reflect on the flip side of that 0-11 there for Johnny.
I mean, that's just an intelligent play from the Warriors, realizing that someone from the Valkyries is going to go try and deal with that fireman and wave. And unfortunately for Johnny, it was him. And he finds his 11th death.
Ducky, a little bit of trouble here. Luckily, Nika's not going to get too much off that dash. And instead of going for the end here, they're going to go for the Fire Giant because, well, they know somebody's got to step up to stop us, or they got to sit back and defend against their waves. They're going to leave just Zeros alone on the backside to defend the wave, and they'll rotate Emil, Raffer, and Ducky over to try and deal with the Fire Giant, but it's down before the Valkyries even have a chance to get in. Emil has to dash away. Cage comes out from Ducky to play his defense, but they're going to break through that cage almost instantly. Neil going to go with the ultimate, force the beads out of Ducky. Raffer forced to walk away as well, and Emil and Vote are having a slapbox fight at the top side of the map, but Vote's the one who comes out on top. Just too much damage for the Hunter to deal with, and Raffer and Zeros now alone on this defense on the right-hand side.
Well, look, maybe Emilito thought it was a slapbox match, but Vote closed his fist and put it in his chin. Now Emilito dead for 45 seconds, 1 bird left standing, and Johnny, you gotta stop dunking alone, man!
And just like the last time that Johnny walked up, he's gonna probably fall here. The poison damage just a little too much. Not quite. Just fades off at the end. Able to get that Aussie proc to get him a little bit of extra lifesteal for him at least. And now Johnny will be able to heal up and deter them for a while, but the Valkyries, they've got to be on defense here. Raffer goes up into the ultimate right in the midst of all of them, but that Titan is already down to half health, and Cuvo is sticking right to it. The Eagles rally into the back line. They're going to pick up 1. Johnny does fall, and so does the Titan. And what looks so good for a game 1 out of the Valkyries, ultimately they fall down, and the Oni Warriors come out on top with a 2-0 set.
Convincing win in Game 2 for the Oni Warriors as well, controlling the early game, controlling the team fight, and controlling Johnny. Unfortunately, what was that, 12 deaths at the end?
Yeah.
Goose egg in the kill department. Apollo Jungle can work, but we just didn't get to see it in that game.
Yeah, unfortunately for Johnny, not having the quite same success that he normally does on this Apollo. We're going to take it to a quick break. We'll come back to the desk right after this.
Well, welcome back, everyone. An Oni Warriors victory here in Season 8 of the SPL Phase 2. And of course, I want to introduce our title sponsor. I just continue discussing our title sponsor, Alienware, who has been able to provide all of our pros with fantastic desktops and monitors, a 240Hz 25-inch monitor, and those Aurora R10 Ryzen desktops that you see us talking about so much. You can get your own at smitegame.com/Alienware. Make sure you use code SMITEAW for some discounts. And thank you again to Alienware. You can follow them at Alienware on Instagram and on Twitter. And you can go to alienwarearena.com for giveaways and more. And speaking of give it away, the Valkyries seem to have given away a little bit of a win there. Game 1, very close contested Taco, 45 minutes. Game 2, Johnny's 0-11. So, or 0-12 maybe by the end there? I mean, it did not go too well.
No, it definitely didn't work out the way that we've seen the Apollo kind of actually have a decent success for Johnny. Maybe not so much in the game score win overall, but he's at least looked much better than what that KDA indicated there in game number 2. But that's kind of just the risk that's involved with taking a pick like the Apollo jungle. When you fall behind, it just crashes underneath you.
It had a lot of opportunities to potentially turn things around, and then he kept doing that. Except that time, we saw the dunk with a surrounding team. Most of the time, that was not the case.
See, we're watching a Kivo Fred highlight reel right now, but really it almost looks like a Johnny Depp montage. Like, this is...
I mean, I'll give it credit. Kivo had maybe the best KDA slash line that he's had all year, and it just came at the cost of Johnny having the worst that we've seen all year. I mean, it looked really good on the circuit there for the Warriors. Definitely clicked together in Game 2 to get things running for them. And I mean, you had kind of called it, but it just didn't seem really together from the Valkyries for a majority of that game.
It looks even worse when you do the post-game assessment. 12, 3 assists. It's like, oh, man. But we've all been there, you know. I think that Johnny is still a jungler with a lot of potential behind him. Obviously not his greatest showing. I'm sure that this is something, though, that is a little bit more wrapped up to the pick itself, not so much individual play. And, I mean, again, happens to the best of us. Johnny just not his day for the Apollo jungle. I think his reign as an Apollo jungle menace might have been put to an end here by the Oni Warriors.
Yeah, definitely showcased, I think, how easily it can be torn apart in some circumstances. I will say I have to admire him. Well, I guess there's two ways to look at it, two sides of the coin. He kept going in. It was a bad idea, but I admire the tenacity that he was willing to keep fighting.
But is Johnny more of a hindrance or an asset for the Valhalla Valkyries?
This is a very important question. That game, definitely hindrance. That way, it's pretty clear cut that time around. Year long, we'll have to figure it out. As of right now, though, it's the Warriors who are standing on top, and we've got Vote standing by for an interview. Vote, I guess like Game 2 seemed pretty cut and dry. You guys just kind of dominated. Did you expect it to go as easily as it did there?
To be brutally honest, yes. That's what I thought Game 1 would go, for being honest. I didn't expect... They came out of Game 1 kind of like swinging. Nika got a bit formed. But I mean, after him carrying for, months and months, it's about time he gets formed.
About time somebody, punches back towards Nika in the solo lane. What was it in Game 1? I mean, like, Nika kind of fell behind. The entire team was behind for a little bit. So how did you fall behind? And then also, how did you bring it back?
I don't know, honestly, what happened. I'm just in my lane. I'm just chilling. I'm 0-0-0. Just trying to farm it out. Just be an ADC player. Just farm lane, get my items on lane. And I think they just had pressure. I think it was. They just played the map better than us.
Well, I know next you guys are going to be playing the Leviathans. There's definitely going to be a pregame interview there, but I just kind of wonder, like, with your eyes on the horizon, are you kind of worried about taking on specifically the Leviathans next?
I don't know, but I'm not worried about anyone, to be honest. I think our biggest enemy is Neil.
Is Neil himself?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, congratulations on your win. Hopefully you can work this out with Neil so he figures out that he's no longer your enemy. You're supposed to be teammates, be friends.
Hopefully.
Well, congratulations, man, once again, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Neil, greatest enemy of the Warriors, Taco. He's the one. He's sabotaging them from the inside out.
And Neil's also his greatest enemy as well, Gore, as previously discussed. Is there a tournament on the line here? Is there a playoff standing in the grips? That's where we'll get to see.
That's what we're looking for.
Decision-making outcome for Neil.
And well, as of right now, the answer is no. 1-8 down at the bottom now for the Valhalla Valkyries. 4-5, eking just ahead of the Tartarus Titans for the time being there for the Warriors, and very close to whoever ends up losing this next match, Leviathans versus Dragons, as they fight for third place. One of them will definitively fall one step closer there to those Warriors. And that'll be the second match of today. Of course, we'll see what the Titans are able to do and whether or not they can keep up with the Warriors tomorrow when they take on the Scarabs. And then they get their second chance, and also a run-ending chance, depending on what happens tomorrow, up against the Bolts later this week. This is just a packed week of games. And again, that's like looking so far ahead. We still have to go over the horizon. The Dragons versus the Leviathans Taco is up next. That is going to be a very meaty game. We'll break that down, though, in just a little bit. We'll be right back with the Dragons versus Leviathans. Everyone, make sure you tune in this Friday to watch our game of the week. The Bolts, undefeated right now, taking on the Camelot Kings. It's going to be live at 1.
Are you recording that game of the week thing?
Yeah, talking Bolts versus Kings Friday.
Bolts. I thought we were going to do Dragons Leviathans for game of the week this week.
The Bolts are like undefeated, making a really crazy run right now, playing the Kings. It's going to be like a big match.
Right, but it's like Dragons and the Leviathans. Like the Leviathans looking better with their new roster. They looked pretty dominant last week. Dragons looking like their old selves.
That's a really good point. But, okay, so hear me out. Games of the week?
Oh, games of the week. I like it.
All right, so tune in Thursday for the Dragons taking on the Leviathans, and then again on Friday, 1 p.m. for the Bolts taking on the Kings for this week's Games of the Week.